When you hear the word business, what comes to mind? Skyscrapers, fast-moving economy, technology and innovation, dollar versus the shilling exchange rate, financial markets, or better still, the US versus China trade war? Is there a magic bullet that can spark Kenya into economic growth? How about this? How is Africa the next economic frontier? What does that even mean? Questions that keep popping up. Is foreign aid helping Africa develop, or rather is it stagnating it? Does good politics translate into economic development? Well, on Metropole Debrief, we break down business, telling you why it matters and showing you how and when it affects your bottom line. This and much more on the new season of Metropole Debrief at 8 p.m. where we're bold and balanced.
On this episode of The Boss Lady.
Didn't make sense that there was a lot of poverty on this continent, and why is that? And growing up, seeing things in the movies, people having this great life.
18 years old in a foreign land and 4 degrees later, Anne Gaither becomes one to focus on.
I love money, and I like when people have money because we're all happy when we have money.
Later,
in that cohort, it was very hard to get into that program, and for me, actually getting into that program was amazing. This is Anne Gaither, the founder and CEO of the Regal Africa Group. We are a diversified financial service firm offering financial advisory services here in East Africa, where we help our clients to create wealth. This is The Boss Lady.
they say building wealth is governed by a standard universal framework. There are 9 words which describe the entire process. Use your surplus income to purchase income-generating assets. Today's Boss Lady tells you this and much more. Anne Gaither was born and raised in Nairobi. She attended Nairobi Primary and later went to St. George's Secondary School here in the city. She comes from a Christian background from a family of 4 and was taught from way back to do the very best and aspire to be the very best. She thought of herself as an average student even though she graduated her secondary school and passed with an A in mathematics. Needless to say, this catapulted her into the financial services world. After secondary school, at the age of 18, she went to the States and joined a Santa Monica college where her older sister also was schooling. She wanted to transition to UCLA, thus the University of California, Los Angeles, but sadly, that dream did not materialize after she realized they did not offer an undergraduate degree in business management, so she ended up pursuing finance, real estate, law, and international business. She has over 20 years of professional experience with 15 years cumulative experience in the financial service industry, both national and international. And now, Anne currently is the founder and CEO of the Regal Africa Group, a diversified financial services company. But where did it all start from? Up until the 1880s, bank employees were exclusively male. The creation of new administrative departments, never in direct contact with customers, coincided with the fast hiring of women in the major financial establishments. Contrary to common belief, women were being taken on to work in banking before the First World War. This was part of a wider movement that saw the feminization of clerical work, with the fairer sex often deemed more competent or conscientious and sometimes even more honest. Women seemed perfect for the jobs that were primarily created at the head offices of the large banks. They worked under the scrutiny of a senior employee who was also a woman, since women had no contact with customers or with their male colleagues. In certain banks, they entered the building through a special entry, and in all the establishments where they were employed, they worked and took their meals in separate rooms. In 1909, women, often young and educated from the middle classes who needed to work, represented 1/10 of the main staff at the Credit Foncier. In 1914, they accounted for almost 25% of the total Parisian staff at the CNEP, 700 out of 3,000. However, these figures hide a disparity in status. Women were paid lower salaries than their male counterparts and had far less job security. They could be paid and dismissed without notice. Their status was often only that of an auxiliary, and it took them far longer than men to obtain a permanent status. Globally currently, women's labor force participation rate is 48.5%, and according to Bloomberg data, in the overall financial services industry, 12% of corporate board members are women. Women are present in all areas of banking activity. The world is keen to promote gender equality in all areas of the workplace, and no doubt, Anne came as far as she did. Back to Anne. She welcomes me into her office, but before we get to the interview, here are a few things you need to know about Anne Gaither.
I can tell you're busy at work, so let's pull you away from work and I can get your attention for just a couple of minutes.
That would be great.
That would be great.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Why did you do what you did?
Okay.
Those are 4 different courses.
Yes, but they all are connected. It's exactly what I do right now as a financial advisor. I take advantage of my education. And the reason I took that course was different things. Growing up, I wanted to be an accountant like my dad. Then I grew up, I decided I want to be a lawyer. But then when I got the opportunity to go to the States, I realized that the American law was different from the Kenyan law. And so I was in this place where I want to study business and finance, but I also want to be a lawyer. So when I came across this course, which was at the California State University of Long Beach, which actually blended everything that I wanted to do, which is finance and law. And then being Kenyan, I had to study real estate. So it was just a perfect combination. And at that time, I realized I really wanted to be in business. I really wanted to be in financial services. And really banking was going to be what I'm going to do, especially investment banking. So that's what I did. And as I continued with my education, I realized being in the States, they didn't know much about Africa. And so I also wanted to study more about what happens globally in business. And so that's why mine are now in international business. Yeah.
That's just fine. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have 1 degree, but worry not. So you, after your education, you still, how many years did it take you to complete all your studies? Like the different 4 degrees that you've mentioned. How many years did they take?
Wow. Let's just say I went to college in 1998 and I got my final degree at that time, my undergrad in 2004. So you can calculate that.
Fine.
Yes.
6 years. Yes, it's not less than 6 years. Anyway, so you end up getting your degree. Were you working as you were attending your classes, or you had to finish everything before now you get into the journey of employment?
Let's just say you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old child in the United States with no parents, with no one to take care of you, take care of yourself, which means you have to work.
Sorry.
You have to work. You have to work, right?
Yeah.
And you do whatever needs to be done to do that, because you have to pay for your own tuition, you have to pay for your housing, your clothing. You're responsible for you. So it doesn't matter how many jobs you do them because you have to go to school.
When did you get your first gig, your first important gig after university?
After university, I was hired by Bank of America. I went into the management training course, which was an amazing opportunity, actually, because I was the only black woman in that cohort, right? The only one from a California State University in that cohort. It was very hard to get into that program, and for me, actually getting into that program was amazing. And those things where I pat myself in the back and say, you know what, you did it, girl, you did it.
And after the training, you just joined them automatically?
Yes.
So how was the experience working for Bank of America?
The experience was great. The experience was great because I found myself in Los Angeles working for Bank of America and really working with very interesting clientele, because this is the wealthy of the wealthy, right? Yeah. And actually that's when I learned that how wealthy people keep their money and how the rest of us who are not informed lose our money. So it was a really good experience for me, really understanding the philosophy and the psychology behind money and the psychology behind business and how wealth is created and how you create generational wealth. And from that, I just said, you know what, this experience is amazing. I need to also come back home and show people how to create generational wealth.
How long were you at the Bank of America for?
I was there for 7+ years.
7+ years?
Yeah.
And even as you left, that was your last employer?
Yes, that was my last employer, and I then resigned so that I can go do my MBA in San Francisco.
And came back home?
And then came back home.
Why?
Why? Oh, wow. I used to have a very straight answer when I first came home, but the truth is this, I always knew I was going to come home. I always knew. At 18, I'm a planner, so I had a 15-year plan, and I came back home in 15 years. I always knew I wanted to come back home and be part of Africa economic development. It just didn't make sense that there was a lot of poverty on this continent, and why is that? And, you know, growing up, seeing things in the movies, people having this great life. I mean, I had a good life, but, you know, you always want more. And then actually going there, it solidified when I learned the things that I learned going through school and my career in banking. I knew that I could come back and find the right people that I could work with to actualize Africa Rising.
Welcome back. Today it's all about that wealth and how you create it. We host one Ann Gaither, the CEO of Regal Africa Group. You ask what that is?
Regal has been there in my heart for many years, for decades, but I actually established it in 2015.
What is Regal all about? And why the name Regal? It's a tongue twister. I'm over here saying Regal, Regal. So please.
Do you know what Regal means?
Let's tell us, please.
So, why Regal? Again, it goes back to me being a very proud African woman and proud of where I'm from, and knowing that there's a lot that is in this continent that a lot of people don't see. Especially me going back to being in the States and people not really understanding what Africa was about, and the picture was always very negative. So Regal,
did you fix that for us, by the way?
I did do my part, and I will tell you that story. But around Regal, the name Regal actually means significant, magnificent, royal. So when you say I'm a regal woman, it means you're from royalty, right? You're magnificent, you're significant, you're worth something. And so Regal Africa to me was just a play on the other side. People see the bad in Africa, but actually I wanted people to show the beauty of Africa. And so that's how Regal Africa was born.
Regal Africa, the financial services, is a company that offers financial services.
Yes.
What services are we talking about? Let's just touch on that just for a bit. And how long has Regal been there for?
So Regal Africa, like I said, it's been in my heart for very many decades, since I was in college. But I established it in 2015. And what Regal was established to do was to help clients create wealth.
Pesa tu.
Pesa tu. Pesa tu.
In what way?
Me, I love money, and I like when people have money because we're all happy when we have money.
My new best friend.
Right?
It's all about the money.
So, because I understood how wealth is created, I know how money flows being in the financial service industry. I wanted to help people create wealth. And that starts with businesses, starts with individuals, institutions, and government. So when Regal Africa was established, was exactly that, to actually offer financial advisory to our clients and actually create value in their organization, or an individual like yourself wants to create wealth. You don't know, you are never informed. You come to us and we help you we help you on that wealth journey. Yes.
Right. And so far, would you say it's been a success? Are you proud of the services that you've offered people out there?
Yes, I'm proud of the services. I'm proud of what Regal has done the last 4 years, but I also think it maybe was done before its time. Timing is everything. In fact, the last couple of years I've been meditating around divine timing, and we all want to create wealth, we all want to make money, but we're ready to do what it takes. And that's what I've found. A lot of people are in a place where they want something, but they are not willing to do what it takes to actually do that. So for the people who have listened, the people who see value, it has actually helped them. For majority, they're still wait and see, especially us here in Kenya. We don't trust people, and we don't trust organizations because there's been a lot of fraud. So I don't blame people. It's just a matter of time.
So while you were away for 15 years, a lot happened. Yeah, things changed. And everything that changed went with the trust. But I don't think you're doing badly off. Of course, you're a woman, yes. That's why you'd be passionate. But yours has gone an extra mile. What's so special about you helping your fellow female?
I don't know. But I'm a woman. I've always, when I was young, and you'd hear about these stories of people who have been taken advantage of, were actually women and children. In fact, when I was growing up, I told you I wanted to be a lawyer. And actually, I used to tell my mom I wanted to be a lawyer who actually works with women and children at the time. And then when the lawyer thing didn't work and I went into business, I'm really passionate about women in business. The other thing I think why women are, and why I support women a lot, when I was 14, my father passed away. And so my mom raised us, 14 years old, and the person I could look up to was a mother who worked very hard to take care of 4 children by herself. And the strength of a woman that I saw, I said, you know what? Any other woman who wants to do the best and has limitations based on circumstances, I want to help her. So I think it's from me being a woman, from me seeing other women who want to do great things and maybe don't have the opportunity. I want to be able to help those women. And our society is very patriarchal, so that's just the way it is. But I think times are changing.
Times are changing.
That's
an inspiring story that you've given us right then.
With her advocate for the girl child and women, I wondered.
I am so sick and tired of people saying, oh, this independent women, this women who are making it in life cannot, they never ever have a man in their lives. Please tell them what the problem is.
I used to pride myself being an independent black woman or African woman. But as I've grown older, I pride myself in just being a woman. I'm not married yet. But I say it's just a matter of time. I'm praying about it and the right man will come along. I've always wanted to have a family.
Do you think you intimidate them?
You'll have to ask them. I don't know.
I'm sure you know.
I mean, and it's been said, a man who is intimidated by you is not the right man for you, right? So, yeah.
So what message would you have for all the girls or all the ladies out there? Because we live in a culture where a man is mwanaume ndo kusema na kutenda. But here you are. You've done so many things that most men actually cannot do. So how would you speak to that young girl or that woman who's out there who's scared of walking away from the marriage because it's going to be a disgrace? It's not allowed in the African culture for you to be single or walk out of your marriage. Hata kama amekukosea rudi tu, you'll fix it. Or even a young girl who's scared of working too hard because she comes from a background where marriage is key to success and not really education and being as independent. So what advice would you have for them? How do you look at this situation as a whole?
For every young girl out there, I tell them, just be you. Authentically who you are. Me and me. Love me, don't like me. Me and me, right? And it might take longer than others, but the right one will come along. So just be you.
As an advice in the kind of education to take in preparation for your career?
And I knew I needed to go into business leadership, and that's why I ended up doing an MBA. But there's some people that's not their path. So for everyone, you need to do what you think is going to benefit you, right? And I think education is very important. The right education is even more important. Don't just get degrees because you want to show somebody you have a degree. Are you using that degree? How is it going to help you to help others, right? So for me, all those courses that I took, I'm using them right now. I'm using my finance course. I work a lot with lawyers. I'm talking about real estate investment. I have clients all over the world. So global, international business is really important for me. And so I always tell people, take a course that actually aligns with your passion, with your purpose, if you know what your purpose is. Have that base, because that will help in the long run. But if you don't know, have a good education, have an education that can let you go into different places that you can actually explore, because you shouldn't be stuck with the decision you made at 18, 19, 20, right? Or the decision that your parents made. In fact, I think I was very lucky because the decisions that I made in my life were my decisions. I was not made to do any course. It was my decision.
That's really the decisions you made.
What?
She's gone all out to say that the decisions that she's made in her life were hard decisions, and she's so happy that her parents accepted your decision. Yeah?
Yes.
Of course they have to, because every African parent wants you to be a lawyer, an engineer, accountant. You get so it's something that it's definite. If I had a daughter and she tells me, "Mom, I want to be a doctor," good job. Especially if you're going to pay your own school fees.
Yeah.
But you have a very inspiring story.
On that note, let's take a look at the Boss Lady Quote of the Day. Boss Lady Quote of the Day. Don't chase the money. Even if you want to be a banker, chase the passion, chase the dream. This quote is by Tyra Banks.
When I came home and when I started Regal, the reason I was doing that is because I wanted to create impact, right? Wealth creation for all and Africa economic development. That's my passion. That's what drives me to create solutions around that. And I've been reflecting, especially this year, because I got to a certain age where I needed to reflect on my life. And I had to ask myself, is the path I'm on the path that I should be, right? Is it taking me where I want to go, right? And so with that, I have realized what I'm aspiring to be is a business leader on this continent.
Focus of body and mind is crucial for a productive day.
Work on the obliques.
We'll look at trends that affect your business day.
Who has a bird's eye view of the whole economy?
These are things that the government should be able to spell out for Kenyans.
An in-depth analysis of the markets.
Markets have been very fearful.
Deploy the capital into investment opportunities.
Business headlines covered extensively.
71 years.
Inspire the whole spectrum of entrepreneurs.
Maneuvered in the harsh economies and all that.
With financial and business literacy in a language easy to understand.
At the simplest form, contracts. The creation of the human mind.
As we look at the boss lady in her element as a woman and a boss.
That women can have access.
As we journey you through farms and produce markets.
This is money.
Taking a breather and even in that, learn a thing or two.
Global map of growth rates.
Taking a look at the business of entertainment.
Movies, fashion, beauty.
Following the money in sports.
Then you widen your stance.
Before switching off our mics and let you have your say.
The economy is undergoing a serious hardship.
Looking at technology as it affects your day-to-day business.
The customer will get notification.
This is Metropole TV.
Hello and welcome to the Capital Point, the show that brings you the voice of business leaders and policymakers who are shaping our economy. My name is Terry-Ann Chebet. Let's start with a question. Should you retire today or lose your job, what kind of lifestyle will you live? Will you be able to afford your home as it is today, your children's fees? Because saving for retirement is one of the biggest challenges that many Kenyans face today. With competing priorities, the culture of saving is almost non-existent. In this week's episode of The Capital Point, we focus on retirement funds, trends in the pension space, and the state of Kenya's pensions industry. Now, today about 1.5 trillion shillings sits with pension funds in Kenya, but only 20% of the working population are covered. Now, that means that only 2 out of 10 employed Kenyans have a pension scheme in place. The concerns of the pension system in Kenya are many and relate to 1, the lack of longevity insurance, low coverage, unfunded liabilities, imprudent asset management, non-payment or delayed payment of pensions, as well as weak enforcement of pensions laws. Now, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that's OECD, assets in retirement benefit schemes totaled 50.7% of GDP in the OECD countries and only 19.7% of total GDP in the non-OECD jurisdictions. It is clear that most non-OECD countries have a long way to go in the growth of the sector. Now, in Kenya, let's come back home. The retirement benefits assets as a percentage of our GDP stands at about 13.4%. That's compared to more developed markets like the USA, which is at 84.1%, and the UK, quite staggering, at 105.3%. The industry has registered great growth from both member contribution and good performances, leading to the assets under management growing to about 1.5 billion. That's in 2019. Now, we will take a short break, and on the other side of the show, we'll have with us Godwin Simba, the Managing Director of Octagon Pension Services, and he'll be delving with us deeper into what we need to know about the pensions industry. Do join the conversation online. The hashtag is #TheCapitalPoint. Follow us on @Metropole TV Kenya. See you in a moment. Hi guys. What does it take to run a business that succeeds?
What does an entrepreneur need to do for his business to scale up and outgrow his dreams?
What does a CEO need to know to make a decision?
What exactly makes the stocks move up and down?
Strategy, insights, innovation, growth, leadership, analysis. In an economy that's fast moving, we are ahead of the game. Armed with data and analysis, we delve deep into the numbers that count, with analysis on key sector and company performance. Join me, Terry-Ann Chebet, on the first of its kind in East Africa, a show that unpacks industries, speaks to business leaders, decision makers, the movers and shakers who steer our economy. The Capital Point, at this time only on Metropole TV. Welcome back. You're watching The Capital Point. If you're joining us online, the hashtag is The Capital Point. Do follow us on @Metropole TV Kenya. I'm now joined in studio with Godwin Simba, the MD of Octagon Pension Services. Thank you so much for making time to be on Metropole TV. Now, of course, the issue of pensions, touches each and every human being, especially because at one point we have to retire, whether it's because of age or illness or work. So we have, as a country, 1.3 trillion shillings in pension funds. It seems quite a big number, but in terms of GDP or in terms of share of GDP, it should be higher. What is your deduction of where we are as the state of the industry?
Thank you, Terry, for having me for this session to just elaborate more about the retirement benefits industry. The retirement benefits industry at large has really been on a growth path when you look at it from the last 10 or 15 years. We've been actually in the industry has moved tremendously from a low of 100 billion to, at the moment, you're talking about 1.3 trillion in terms of the fund sizes. And this ideally represents close to 15% of the GDP. The reason for growth has been the need or the sensitization in the market regarding the pension savings, as well as also you notice that when it comes to pension coverage, we still, of course, not where we are supposed to be, because we're talking about close to 19% of pension coverage in the Kenyan market. Comparatively to the most developed economies, you're talking about over 100% when it comes to GDP. And essentially, the pension industry really plays a key role in the economy because it fuels investments into the capital markets. You also find the pension industry invests a lot in property and also private equity. So there's a critical role which the pension industry plays. And the more that we have funds in the economy, then you may see a higher growth rate in terms of the economic GDP.
And just if we can split that 1.3 trillion, 1.16 is in private pension funds.
You're right.
0.2 is in the public pension fund, which is NSF.
Yes.
Why is there such a
100 shillings? Now, over time, NSSF has started to improve its own contributions, but at the moment, we are still at a ceiling of 200 shillings per contribution from an employee and 200 shillings from an employer perspective. So when you look at the growth of the NSSF funds, it's not been substantial enough. And comparatively to the private sector pension funds, you're looking at almost 31% of the funds in the NSSF funds being the total of the pension assets, and about 61% coming from the employer's pension savings. Now, the reason why you've seen the employers or the occupational schemes growing faster, or the private pension schemes growing faster, is the fact that the contribution rates in employer-sponsored schemes are always high, and the average in the market is currently standing at around 7.5% to around 10% from employer and employee perspective in terms of contributions. You even find in civil service or parastatals, they contribute as high as 10% and 20% from both employer and employee perspective. So that has really driven the assets in the pension industry quite a lot. The NSSF as well has also tried to increase the coverage of the membership. We're talking about close to 3 million Kenyans, both in both the private and in the NSSF membership portfolio. And ideally, you realize that for every 2 in 3 people who are employed, most of them are actually in NSSF. So you find members who are in NSSF funds are also members in the private pension schemes. So that also can tell you the fact that as you look at the numbers deeply, the 3 million people are actually people in the formal employment. So there's actually a more need to discuss more about those who are in the informal sector as well.
Absolutely, and we'll look at that in just a moment. But I want to break down a little bit some of the investments, and you alluded to the impact or the impact the pensions industry could have on the economy as a whole. Just looking at how these pension funds are invested, 35% in government bonds,
yes, right,
20% in listed companies, 19% in property, 14% in guaranteed bonds, and the remainder about 12% in bonds, deposits, some offshore, etc. What are some of the new areas that these funds need to look at?
Over the years, we've seen most pension funds investing in traditional investments. These are what you've listed: government bonds, stocks, corporate bonds, as well as short and long-term, call and fixed deposits for that fact. But then increasingly, pension funds have become more agile to new investments. We're seeing more focus towards infrastructure investments, such as public-private partnerships, which actually more focuses on infrastructure investments. We've also seen schemes moving into new asset classes that the capital markets have, rolled in the market, like derivatives for this purpose. We've also seen rates being rolled out by the capital markets over the last 2 years. So pension funds have also increasingly moved into that. And again, why the drive for the move has been because you find the investments in the pension funds have been a bit volatile. So if you look at the equity investments for the last three or so years, we've actually not been performing very well at an average of perhaps 5% return. And members who are retiring are demanding more of, a good return. And therefore, trustees or the people who manage pension funds are actually on a high, search for stable and high return investments.
Talking of stability, the government seems to have identified, that pot of gold in as far as the Big Four agenda is concerned. But we've seen some fund managers saying, developing cold feet and being apprehensive about it, saying we are not sure about the risks associated with that. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that the investment into public-private partnerships is quite a good area to look at. If you look at most developed economies and also most of the big pension funds in the world, even in South Africa, the government pension fund for South Africa, they've done quite a lot on private-public partnerships. It was quite a new area when you look at it from the Kenyan perspective, because it's quite a new area that the trustees are trying to understand, also the industry trying to understand. And that also is more driven by the legal framework existing for pension schemes to actually invest. And remember that these pension funds are ideally members' funds. And the first priority or objective for any pension fund is to preserve the capital that this member has contributed into. So that means you have to really be cautious when you're taking risks, in as much as you also want to balance the return perspective. So you find that pension funds are a bit cautious, looking at the legal framework, looking at the risks, and by then, if you look at the introduction of that asset class, we're still at the early stages, and I think there's a lot of awareness that needs to be done, in as much as also we are assessing the legal framework to support the objective of pension funds.
Let's talk about coverage of pension funds, specifically with the SME space, where the majority of Kenyans today are actually employed by. However, many of them are not formal, and even though NSSF is supposed to be mandatory, the majority of SMEs do not actually pay to NSSF for their members of staff.
Yeah.
In what ways can the SME space get more engaged?
When you look at the current statistics in the market, the coverage rate, as mentioned, is around 19%. Now, out of the 19%, we do have close to 15 million Kenyans who are in both formal and informal space. So that tells you have close to only 3 million saving for pension. There's been need for the sector to look at the informal sector employers, and trying to create some awareness about saving for retirement. The key challenge that has been, of course, faced in the Kenyan market is the fact that pension is always a long-term objective. Secondly, pension has always been seen as a voluntary benefit that the employers normally put in place. So there has to be a sensitization between the employees on the need to save for retirement, and also for employers in the SMEs to look at pension as a key motivator towards retention and recruitment of the employees. And also, coming back to the informal sector, these are individuals who perhaps do not have a structured saving. So the industry also needs to look at the aspect of creating products that are actually centered around the informal sector. And this would be driven by technology, instead of the mortar and brick where people have to walk in to be serviced and all that. And there's quite a lot of developments around that space, right from the launch of Mobikeza, the launch of Mbawa Pension Plan and all that. So coming to look at it from a perspective of adequacy and sustainability of retirement benefits for the Kenyan population, we are currently speaking about close to 37% to around 40% old age poverty rates currently. So meaning even the people who are actually in retirement at the moment, they are not enjoying a good life in as much as you're having a small pension coming through. So those are the conversations that the industry is really looking at and trying to say, how can we net off now? How can we bring into the net these more than 15 million people or 14 million people who are actually ideally are supposed to be saving for pension?
Mm-hmm. Let's, some of our viewers are, SMEs,
yes,
and probably wondering, why should I really care? What would you tell an SME who's an employer?
Yes.
Why should they care?
My advice would be to look at that employee from a perspective of when he leaves retirement, when he leaves employment. On average, most people actually work between age 25 and age 60 years. There's a high likelihood that that particular individual would work for you until age 60 years, which is close to 30 years. But then the probability is also high that the same person would be able to live for another 30 years. He only has those 30 years is working for you as an SME to be able to accumulate something sustainable for them to take care of old age. And when you look at the aspect of promoting life in retirement, it's actually a conversation that begins from the employment perspective. Why would an employer, for example, care for your medical, get you medical now when you're working, or probably get you good perks, get you a good pay, but then immediately you leave employment, you become destitute in employment. You don't have any income to sustain you. That's where when medical challenges crop in, and probably also you find old age support systems are no longer sustainable, so you find that people are on their own. So for an SME who has employees, I think the care should be more about the current benefits that are for pre-employment, but also should extend to post-employment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And what's the role of the individual, let's say the employee,
yes,
who may be working for an SME that's not paying NSSF, for instance? What can they do to encourage,
yes,
what are some of the conversations they can start having with their employers?
I would encourage them to, as an individual, you first have to have your retirement goal as an individual. First of all, try to understand what happens after employment, and not even nowadays after employment, because there are many risks that comes in before you even get to the retirement age. There's a risk that you can lose your employment before you get to your retirement age. There's a risk that probably the investments that you have done may actually be utilized for other pre-retirement, expenditure. Like now, education, you are focusing on education, you are focusing on housing, and also personal upkeep. But then you have to look and say, what is life beyond the employment that you have? And that would be answered if you start having a retirement goal or a long-term goal towards your savings. You may want to invest, for example, even if you invest in a SACCO, for example, which I see majority of people, SACCOs are more popular in terms of savings. But then SACCOs normally are aimed to achieve the short-term needs. You may want to borrow, for consumption, buying a plot, property, and all that. But then the long-term nature of it is that at some point you will retire and you need to have accumulated enough funds to take you for even more than 20 to 30 years of your retirement life. Currently, maybe just to look into the statistics of longevity, our current, we are looking at people currently living at an average age of 74 years. So meaning you have like 15 years on average, if God allows you to stay more than 60 years to live. You still want to maintain the same standards of living. Mm-hmm. So those conversations need to happen at an individual level and to start from saving. Mm-hmm. So have a conversation with your employer, and if your employer is not is not ready at that moment to start contributing for retirement, there are so many personal pension plans in the market. There are close to almost 30 registered personal pension plans. For example, we run an Octagon personal pension plan that has close to 5,000 individuals. And we launched a product for the informal sector 2 months ago, where we have onboarded close to more than 10,000 individuals within 2 months because of the flexibility that comes with the technology.
How much? What's the minimum for your pension plan?
We're looking at actually no minimum. You can actually deposit as low as 1 shilling through your mobile phone, and it's a product we have called it Mobikeza. It's quite a convenient product that if you're out there and you're an individual who you want to start saving for your retirement, you don't have to wait for your employer. Just put it in your funds through your USSD platform and start saving for retirement. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's interesting because there have been campaigns I've seen, especially at community level, yes, where people who have house girls or nannies, right, or gardeners and watchmen being, yes, told you need to start contributing, mm-hmm, or encouraging, mm-hmm, your staff within the household to also start thinking about their future.
Right.
So another question that comes to mind with this is the rise of the gig economy, mm-hmm, the future of work as it's called, where reports and research is showing that in the next couple of years, many young people will not be or even want to be in the formal economy. Mm-hmm. What will this do to the formal pension system?
Yeah. First, it probably, when you look at the key risks we are addressing currently in the current structure we have, is actually to address the population that we have currently, the current workforce that we have. There are emerging trends that are really either they may work for or against, but ideally sometimes if you don't plan well as an individual, it may work against you. Key example is the gig economy you've mentioned. These are individuals that would not want to stay in a job for a long period of time. You probably don't go into a formal employment. What does that have an impact towards your savings? It's because then if you don't structure your savings well from start, when you start earning that income, it doesn't have to be a payroll. It could just be that you've got to that gig, you get some money. You must start having the discipline of starting to look at and say, out of every income I earn, how much should I be saving? And we advise everyone in that particular cluster to save at least 10% on the bare minimum and let the 90% of your other income, you use it for other reasons. But then when you look at the impact of that to the current savings is that most of the savings that we currently have in the pension space, in the pension sector, are actually savings that have been accrued from people who are in formal employment, long-term formal employment. Mm. So meaning if people lose employment or you opt to go for short-term contracts and all that, you potentially lose out from the structure. And therefore, that would mean then you, as an individual, you have to look at how do you balance that by enrolling into a private pension scheme that you can contribute into.
All right. Now, members of parliament are clearly not friends of the pensions industry. have decided to scrap the age limit.
Right.
What will this do to, you know, whatever is already there, given that if we look at this year alone and what has happened in terms of job losses, retrenchments, and many of these people will want now to go and access their funds.
Yes.
So what happens now?
Ideally, when the regulations came in June to actually preserve the employer portion of the funds that members have contributed to the scheme until the retirement age, the industry looked at it as a welcome move, because then it was going to promote you know, the longevity or the sustainability and the adequacy of pension funds for these members. The challenge that we face as an industry has been where members are actually putting in money to the pension fund. And when you look at the percentage of the funds they are putting into, is close to around 5%. So ideally, when members of the pension funds contribute, we actually take out almost 5% of their salary. Which goes into the pension fund. So they are left with the other 95%. Now, the portion that the employer is contributing is ideally a voluntary contribution. So the perception has always been that the employer portion, even if you are allowed to access your employee portion as an individual, plus the income that has accrued, at least the one that is been accrued from the employer's side should actually hold on until when you get to 50 years. Which we saw that would have actually promoted, you know, adequacy of the funds in retirement. But then I think because, of course, we live in an economy which people have, you know, they have to express their, you know, there's what we call public participation, which members felt that, you know, it may not be wise to lock the employer portion, and that portends a big risk, actually, to most members who have saved for pension. Ideally, when you look at the current withdrawals that you know, we pay out to individuals, we pay out close to, because the employer portion tend to be higher than the employee portion in most cases. So that means the current people exiting from the funds, they actually access a bigger portion from the employer portion. So that means then you are likely to have a big risk coming in retirement.
So what advice do you have for somebody who maybe has lost a job?
Yes.
They have a pension scheme in place, and they are thinking, now that I may need some money in the short term, I can go and withdraw, now that the rule, as you know, this particular rule is in place.
Yes.
So what advice would you have for them?
I would advise that as soon as you set in to start saving for pension, just put it in your mind that it's a long-term investment. It's a long-term saving. It's not a short-term saving. In the unfortunate event you lose your job, and you still of a working age, you still have the energy to work. Perhaps you're looking at people who are below 50 years. What you may want to do as the first priority is just to assume that that money for pension is not there, because that was not the intended objective. In as much as you're allowed to withdraw, the first thing you probably need to do is that look at for other alternative sources of income that you can sustain yourself in the meanwhile as you look for employment or alternative means of sustaining yourself. But then in the event you have to access your benefits, look at it from a point of view where you are accessing it for a purpose of purposes of investment, not for purposes of running, you know, your day-to-day, you know, needs. Because then, if you lock out the pension funds from the scheme, it means then you are losing out on the interest. And normally, pension funds have given an average of around 12 to 13% income for the last 10 years, if you look at the average statistics in the market. So even if you are going to do investments which is outside the pension space, just look at the risk and the return that comes with it. Because we've seen most people who leave employment, the first thing they get that letter that you are leaving employment, they want to actually withdraw that money. And withdrawing that money has a bigger risk, because then the intended purpose will not be achieved.
As we wind up, what's your outlook for 2020 for the pensions industry?
Perhaps to look at it from an industry perspective, we saw the regulator, Retirement Benefits Authority, launching a strategic plan, 5-year strategic plan, quite an ambitious one. And we believe that it sets the tone for the industry in terms of coverage. We're seeing more of conversations coming around increasing awareness, and we are likely to see more uptake of pension products from outside the formal sector employees. So we pretend, and we are likely also to see more informal sector employers, coming in, informal sector employers and also employees coming in to add into the basket of retirement savings. The second thing that we are very positive about is the investment outlook. We've seen quite some stable economic outlook in the Kenyan market. However, when you look at the returns that the pension funds have been getting over the last few years, 3 years or so, it hasn't been quite attractive as such. But over the last 2 months, we've seen a rise in terms of returns from equities, government bonds. So we potentially look at a future where the returns will be more attractive for people actually to retain their funds in the retirement benefits industry. The last thing that we are more, that I'm personally convinced, the fact that there are products that are coming out in the market that are more attractive for any individual to save for retirement. With the use of technology that we do have on a day-to-day basis, I would advise individuals to be on the lookout for products that would give you convenience, comfort, and also it will be more easier for you to enroll in terms of pension, as well as look also for products that would also give you pension and also augment it with insurance. Because there's one thing to save for pension, and you insure that risk that you are likely to live for long. But also there is the element that you want to safeguard yourself just in the event something happens before you retire. And that would mean then you may want to take a life cover. You may also want to make sure that your families are safeguarded by ensuring that you have put in place a document or a will that would ideally protect your loved one. So as we move towards more sensitization, there's more to discuss around embedding the pension products, especially to serve the formal and the informal sector, with insurance products, so that you are giving a bouquet of quite some comfort or security in retirement.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for your insights and for making time to be with us on the Capital Point. I have been speaking with Godwin Simba, the MD of Octagon Pension Services. You've been watching The Capital Point. My name is Terry Ann Chebet. Have a good night.
When you hear the word business, what comes to mind? Skyscrapers, fast-moving economy, technology and innovation, dollar versus the shilling exchange rate, financial markets, or better still, the US versus China trade war? Is there a magic bullet that can spark Kenya into economic growth? How about this? How is Africa the next economic frontier? What does that even mean? Questions that keep popping up. Is foreign aid helping Africa develop, or rather is it stagnating it? Does good politics translate into economic development? Well, on Metropole Debrief, we break down business, telling you why it matters and showing you how and when it affects your bottom line. This and much more on the new season of Metropole Debrief at 8 p.m, where we're bold and balanced.
Hello and welcome to E-Magazine. I'm your host Brenda Nyami Chabana. Today is Art Wednesday, and of course we're going to look into the art space in Kenya. And today I have a fine art artist in studios with me. His name is Alfred Odhima Odhiambo. Thank you so much for joining me. And today we're looking at how to commercialize your art, and there's no perfect person to talk to about that except you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm fine myself. I'm glad you're joining me today. I just want to get to know more about you, about your work, and you just describe to us what kind of art you do.
Okay, I do fine art, which is different from the commercial, and I do it digitally using softwares and
softwares. For individuals who don't even understand what you mean by that, just break it down.
Break it down. Like let's say a basic digital art will require you to have a software like Photoshop, Final Cut, and the stylus pen, and a really good computer.
Okay. So you have to do a lot of investments.
Yeah, you have a lot.
Now let's take you back a bit. When you first got into being a full-time artist, this is your business now, you make money from it.
Yes.
So take me back to when you realized this is what I want to do.
Okay, most people say, oh, I started in 3 years and stuff like that. When it comes to me, when I was young, I used to watch cartoon and movies, and I was like, how are these people jumping? How are these people doing this? I didn't know that at that time my brain was like signing how I was going to do this. So I kind of just loved it, going through primary and high school. Then when I reached in campus, I noticed that there was school for this. So I attended, but you're still like, but my parents want me to be a doctor. So you do it like a hobby subject, not like your main.
Not full time.
Not a full time.
Okay, now before you even continue, let's just take it back a bit. Your parents wanted you to be a what? a doctor?
Yeah.
So you went to the campus doing what, medicine?
Let's not talk about that.
That's a very interesting transition.
Yeah.
Great.
So I switched to IT, and then I found out that IT and what I was doing like merged perfectly. So after school, you know what people say, let's go to do IT. Then IT said no. And then, okay, I started as a grifter, the camera guy. Then I noticed like I do not like doing this. So I started editing on my own. Like I'll be left in the studios, I do my own edits, then I'll be like, so I can do this. That's when my love for editing came.
Okay.
And from there, I started for the same company. Actually, I was doing every job.
Everything. Every role in that place.
Yeah, and I was just doing it like for fun. I was actually an intern. I was not even.
That's how you grow your passion eventually.
That's how I got my passion. But if you ask me if I got my passion from there, that's where I started monetizing it. But passion is from when I was a kid.
Okay.
Because at that time, I didn't want to do it for money. I wanted to do it because it was cool. Yes.
It's amazing because, of course, when you're a kid and you're watching cartoons and you're wondering how people are moving. Personally, for me, I never thought of it that way. I was just like, it's just a story. So it's quite interesting that you saw it that way.
Yes.
Now, another thing I just want to understand is when you do your artwork, do you have a kind of theme behind it? Do you have a story you're trying to tell? Do you have an audience you're trying to reach out to?
Oh, okay. That's a really good question. You see, the thing with fine art is focusing on one person or, let's say, a group of people. For example, let's say we take a picture of you. Somebody else can take a picture of you. Another person can take a picture of you.
Yes.
And then you'll be like, I still look the same in all of this.
Yes.
But when it comes to fine art, you have to, I actually have a book you have to feel. So I know how you look when you're sad, how you feel when you're like, how do you like your lighting? Don't you like being in the shadows? You know, these little details that people do not know. Because like you are a presenter, you need to smile.
Yes, a lot.
You know, if I tell you like, come to my studio and, just frown, you will feel that it's not you.
Yes, most definitely.
So from there, that's like the framework. You have not even started doing the art. Then from, let's say, taking the picture of you, then when you start painting and doing, there are people who want like full portrait of themselves. And then there's some people who want you to infuse other things, like different backgrounds, according to their needs, so that it feels like it's them, but from the inside, not them that everyone sees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds very beautiful. Now you mentioned earlier, of course, when you started having the interest in art itself, you started as a hobby before transition into working as in IT and eventually seeing that you love to do art. Now, what I want to know is, when you're working in IT, you got to realize this is still not your thing. I can do art. I wanted to know how you transition into starting your own business.
Oh, hey, how do people say about that? I don't want to mention the company or anything bad about the company, but You see, when you start doing something, and people are like, he's really good at it in Kenya right now.
Yes.
They'll be like, let's say us two, we're both working in the same office. Then every mistake that you do, it goes to my desk, and I have the same time. You know, the people see you love doing what you do. So they'll be like, he likes doing it, so let's just give it to him and give him like 3 days.
Wow.
So you see, people like, how do they say? Let me use Kiswahili.
No problem.
They say, hii kitu ina choro choro tu hivi.
Ni rahisi sana.
Yeah. Then you're like, you know, you have to think, because when I do something for you, let's say for your house, it's not for you, it's for your guests.
Yes.
It portrays how you are. So from there, I started attending the meetings so I could listen to how the clients were saying. That's when I was like, I can hear what they're saying, but these people are not listening.
Yes.
So I was like, let me try. Then a friend of mine who was doing a wedding, they gave him a clip, 3 hours, and about 2 hours, 15 minutes, it was about the church.
Wow.
So, you know, people are like, okay, we attended, we saw, we were in church, so there's nothing big about this. So he told me like, for the anniversary, can you do something, you know, fun? Then I did it for like 1 week, and then he paid me like a large amount.
A lot of money.
A large amount, and I was like, so I can do this on my own. I don't need all the cameras. All I need is footage and what the client wants.
Okay.
And that is the key word in fine arts. You have to do what the client wants.
So you create what they tell you to.
What they tell you.
What they want. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
now, that's when you realize I can make this money on my own. I don't need another channel.
But do not make it about money.
Okay. True say, 100%. Even before we move on to talking about money, I want to get to know, what are some of the challenges we faced in this space? Because I know not just generally for a fine art individual like you, art in general in Kenya, there's a lot of challenges, not from making money, from finding the right people to sell your products to. So I want you to tell me some of your challenges in this space.
Oh, my challenge personally. First of all, as I told you earlier, my firm's name is Introvert. I'm supposed to be hidden. So it's meeting people. You know, when you meet people, there are different types of people. So there are loud people, there are like quiet people, and then there are people like, you just do what you do. Those are, let's not say worse, but you do not know what they want, because they just tell you, I saw you did something good, just do.
And they're scared if you do something and they don't like it afterwards.
Yes. You know, after that you have to go to the board, storyboard, and you go check, and they're like, he might not like this. And you know, the moment you're doing that, time is not on your side. Second is this set of clients. They tell you that price is not
good enough.
That's not good enough. And you know, when you tell people you do digital art, they're like, you're just using lights. They don't see the expenses behind you doing the work they want. Because right now everybody wants 4K.
Wow.
Nobody wants 1080. They're like, yeah, I want to be better than the other people. As I said, machines are expensive. Like HP workstation goes for around, the standard one, 122,000 Kenyan shillings.
Well, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
now I'm curious to know how much you invested in your equipment yourself. You just give me a figure.
A figure.
Just for individuals out there trying to get into the same space as you.
Okay, it depends. If you want the perfect color palette and everything, you need at least $250,000.
Wow.
But if you know IT, you just buy things slowly, like parts of the machine, so that you can get it built. Can hook you up with my friends. They can.
They can do it for you.
Yeah, they can do it.
No
but
problem.
Yeah, it's easier than saying I'll buy the machine.
Okay.
You just pick parts as you work with the machine that you have for the, let's not say lower, but the clients who love your work, because you know your first clients are your parents, your cousins, and then after there you
You grow.
You grow.
Okay, wonderful. Now I want you to give me one last challenge. I'm sure there's another challenge
Oh,
you face.
challenge.
Oh, there's a
challenge. There is this called artist block.
I can imagine. Yes, I'm sure that is one.
Yeah, you know, when you are there discussing with the client, you're like, yes, this can happen. Then you go there and you're like, okay, this will not portray what he was saying. And you know, going back there, it's an issue because you're already a brand.
Okay.
You know, being a brand is different from just starting out. When you're a brand, they're like, you said you'll deliver, give us this.
Very true.
So you know that's, sorry to say this, but one last challenge is we don't have art fairs in Kenya. We have like 2 or 3 times a year, and the ones that are there, most people do not know. Like the one in the Japanese embassy, you know, like the other one was in the malls. They just.
So it's a really small community that not a lot of people know. So you don't get the chances of having big investors to come there.
Yes.
And collect your art, perhaps, should I say that?
Yes.
Well, I have so many questions for you, Alfred, but I want us to pause right there. We're going to take a short commercial break, but don't go anywhere. You're watching E! Magazine, because when we come back, we have more information and conversations for you. Welcome back. Now, if you're just joining us on E! Magazine today, we're looking at commercializing your art as we speak to fine art artist Alfred, and he's told us so much about his experience in the space, and I have so many more questions for you. Now, Alfred, you mentioned earlier a lot of artists, especially when you were in uni and you went through that commercializing art, that art, and you realized that's not your thing. I just wanted you to tell me why you feel like a lot of artists move into the commercial space side and not really, this other side of art.
Oh, the fine art. Okay, most people do something because they want to earn money. Money is not bad, but your first 2 to 3 years, you have to, do community service, because that's more of learning and training yourself to be more potent in what you're doing. So most people go to commercial because there are sites where you can buy tools for, let's say, making a logo, making, brand making technically.
Okay.
But, it doesn't feel, okay, it might work because most Kenyan DJs, sorry to say this, most Kenyan DJs buy. Okay. So that's why you see most of their logos look the same. They do not want to venture into other things. So plus it's easy. It takes about, to do okay, it depends with the company, but it takes about 1 day to make something for someone.
Okay.
So, if you can, let's say, the average of logo right now, I think it's 12,000. So, if you can make that in 1 day, people will be like, why struggle with other things when I can just do this, black and white, and I get paid.
Very true.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to your work, of course, when you were getting into that market, I'm sure you wanted to come in with favorable prices for your clients.
Yes.
So I just wanted you to give me not an exact number, but how do you price your work, ranging from what to what? And how do you come to that conclusion?
The thing is, it depends with the type of work you're doing. You know, like there's the double exposure, there's the lighting. So it depends with the amount of work. You know, I've been working for the community for the past 1.5 years before I started, like, you know, making my brand being known.
Okay.
So, you know, you need to ask your friends, and, you know, I started at 500 shillings.
Doable price, you're getting
doable price. Then, you know, the work you're doing, actually, I think that's why people came to me, because they are like, the work you're doing and the
versus the price
is like, plus you're flexible, so people can, you know, call you like, you need to change this, you need to change this.
Yes.
Then I was like, oh, so people are using that advantage. Then I decided to add, and I thought people would leave because I added. Then they were like, oh.
They stayed there.
So, okay. So what I would say is you need to improve your work so that you can, per project, let's per say 10 and above. We don't need to tell a client 10, but you know, it can be lower or it can be higher. But if you have passion for art, you know, you start with the small projects. Haba and Haba hujaza kibaba.
Yeah, than the kibaba.
But my price range is from a 10.
Okay. Do you feel like you would advise artists like out there who are doing the same thing, who are trying to get into fine art, to ensure that, you know, quality of your work always translates to their price?
Yeah. Actually, you need to learn how to read colors, because that's one of the first things you need to know. Colors, lighting, and shadows. Because, you know, I can take a picture, there's light everywhere, there's no mood, there's no story behind it, it's just a picture. Yes, we know you are beautiful, but from the picture, that's not what we want. What you want, like, you know, dramatic poses and stuff like that. You just don't need to put something beautiful to be beautiful. You need to reach the mind, so that, you know, you go further. Don't just take a picture of someone or draw someone, or even, fine arts is big, even sound and everything.
It involves a lot of things. You sounded very artistic explaining that. Now, of course, you have this whole brand of yourself right now. You have a business, you're building a brand. I just wanted to get to know, what are some of the ways you were able to build your brand to what it is today? Especially since right now today we have social media. Artists like you are making use of that a lot to get their work out there. It's not just about word of mouth now. It's about the presence you have on that social media internet space. I just wanted to get to know, for you, what you've been doing to build your brand, and if you've, you know, made use of social media.
Okay. Okay. Networking. Networking is really important, but it depends where you go to network. Like at the fairs, when you network, you might be at the, I don't know if you know about the Nikon.
Yeah, I know about the Nikon, yes.
And then you try to bring your sadistic things, and they're like, what is this guy doing?
Yes.
You see, you need to see the right place. And for me, thankfully, I have a group. We're about 84 people. And everybody is connected to all the arts, and they're not all from Kenya. So when something is happening online or offline, they just, you know, post it.
And show each other.
And we share, and we ask each other questions, like, how do you do this? How do you market from this country to this country? How do you ship? And I know that's what sort of word of mouth. Because, you know, me as my brand, it's more of linking personally to the client. You know, you wouldn't want, let's say something is for your kitchen. You wouldn't want I remove something from the net and then sell it to you, right?
Yes, when I could just print it.
Exactly. Exactly. So what if I did, you were referred by somebody to me, I did something spectacular for you, and only you have the copy for that thing in your kitchen. So if you want, you'll be the original person to spread the picture of what you have,
Very true.
How would that feeling be?
Amazing.
Exactly.
Probably if you become even more famous, I'll just sell it or something. Make money from it.
Talking about social, like the Behance, social networks like Behance, there's this Shot Guru. It's nice, it's really nice, but you know, people, not necessarily Kenyans or Africans, it's more of people always prefer somebody to something.
Okay.
That's why you'll see somebody taking a picture of food
Instead.
gets more
Very
likes.
true. Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
So I wouldn't advise, but if you have that much people on the internet, it's really okay with me. But for me, my brand, I use word of mouth and through my networks, which is low-key, because I want somebody to feel special. And you know, when they feel special, they want to, it's like VIP.
VIP services.
Yeah, it's...
so you don't want everyone to have the same pieces, the same work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So of course, I want to, as much as I want to see your work, I'm sure also our viewers want to see it. I'm literally standing in the middle. But you could tell us more about this. What's the idea behind this?
The client said, I love nature.
So
but I want you to put me in the nature. So I was like,
so this is how in the nature.
Yeah, yeah.
This is for a house piece or something.
Yeah, it was for a house piece. It's A1. Actually, it's that big, and they wanted to see what I could do, and that's double exposure. Most artists will know that. So you know, like getting the colors, the texture. It's quite a work. Plus the
looks complicated.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated, but you know, it's something that once you see it, because you need to have a sketch pad. You need to sketch it down. No, cannot have face fully because that will take time. And then you like think it like, what was she thinking when she was taking this picture? What was she doing when she was doing this, or what the client was doing? And then from there, this was not even the first piece. There were like 6 other pieces, and then this is the one that she accepted. She was like, "Wow, you actually caught what I wanted."
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
now I want to take a look at another one. We have this one, which is my favorite. I really like this. So what were you thinking? What was your thought process behind this?
The process behind that. So the lady wanted the cartoon effect, but not cartoon effect because she's an adult, but not an adult.
Okay.
If you get what I say.
Yeah.
So she was like, I want you to, think about, I love the color red, pink, orange. So you do your thing. This was one of those people. You do your thing, then I'll pay you when
they're happy with the final
it's
project.
what I want. So I was like, but this, funny enough, it was on a Sunday. I just had come from the service. Then it took me like 7 minutes to do this. To do this. Then I just, posted it like a joke. Then she was like, that one. That is what I want.
Wow. Well, it's amazing. I'm feeling I might just talk to you after the show and maybe I'll get a piece as well. Thank you so much, Alfred. I sadly have to cut our conversation short today.
Yes.
Had an amazing time to learn more about the fine art space in Kenya. Now, thank you so much for watching. We're going to take a short commercial break, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we have the artist space giving you a little few tips, one-on-one tips on how to market your art on the social media platforms. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the magazine. Welcome back. Now, after having a conversation on commercializing your art, is nothing better than giving you a marketing your work 101 right here on eMagazine. Now, to start us off, one of the major tips when it comes to marketing your work is you make a portfolio. Now, making a portfolio allows you to both develop and package your art professionally and make it easier to submit your work to competitions, post on social media platforms, as well as develop marketing material. It is also important to note that since your portfolio often serves as a first impression, make sure you put a lot of thought and work into it. Now, the second tip I want to give you is you have to have a strong internet presence. Now, having a strong internet presence means growing, in the growing age of social media, having a strong internet presence is very important as it allows you to market your work easily. And today's digital space has evolved to be the space for marketing as you're able to reach a larger customer base. Now, the next tip I have for you means networking. When it comes to networking and promoting your work, one of the ways to do so is by mastering the skills of networking. Reason being, networking is one of the key ways artists can find the right customers to buy their work. Networking could simply mean attending exhibitions and fairs, as well as joining art organizations that provide workshops. And in these spaces, this is where you're able to find people to buy your work, hold collectors, or simply even people to invest in your work. Now, the last tip I have for you is to participate in art competitions. This is one of the best ways of artist promotions because not only does it provide the right attention for your work, but also attaining any kind of award for your art can help you build a great reputation as an artist. Well, that's all the marketing tips for your art that I have for you here in eMagazine today. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you catch all the other episodes of eMagazine on our social media platforms at Metropole TV, and also follow me on my social media platforms at Nyami Chaba or Brenda Nyami Chaba. As for now, it's a goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you later.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Lounge, the show that highlights success stories of young entrepreneurs who are making it in various fields against all odds. And as usual, we're shooting at Dotage Home and Exclusive Furniture in Westland on Parklands Road. I'm very excited for this show because I have very exciting guests lined up for you. And my very first guest with me here is Penina Ntongondu, who is the CEO and founder of Queen's Pizza Deliveries. Welcome to the show, Penina.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very happy to see you.
Happy to see you too. I only see you on TV.
Thanks, Penina. I've been dying to have you here. Penina, Queen's Pizza Delivery. First of all, you're looking very nice.
Thank you.
If I were to choose and put you in a certain field, I would not have put you into pizza delivery.
Don't let this fool you.
I know. I'm always glad when I'm surprisingly, pleasantly surprised and shocked. So tell me about your business.
My business. Generally, as a kid, I loved cooking since I was little. So I got employed as a cashier in one of the big pizza companies we have in Nairobi, and I think it's also outside the country. So I worked as a cashier for some years. Then I got interested. Remember, I loved cooking, right? So I'm dealing with food, and then it's pizza. Everyone loves pizza.
Everyone loves pizza. I've never tasted a bad pizza. Even when it's really bad, it's okay. My argument is even when it's really bad, it's still edible. You can still eat a bad pizza. Okay.
Yeah, so after being a cashier for so long now, I wanted to learn more about the business. So I learned how to make the dough. I went to the manager, I learned how to close the books. I learned everything I had to learn about the business. So I grew from a cashier and became a manager. So after some time, I got another job at another international pizza company. Still, actually it was here in Westlands, as a branch manager. So I loved the business. I saw how well both companies were doing. I always wanted to start my own business because I knew in hospitality, you cannot do it when you're older, like in your old age. And I'm a lady who wants to have babies and be married and
start
all that.
Start a family.
Exactly. So I could not imagine leaving work at 2 a.m. and I have maybe a kid. So like one day I'll start my own thing.
Right.
But there's that fear of getting started and leaving a paycheck at the end of every month. So one day I was from work. I had gone to run some errands in the evening for my boss, and I got a bad eye injury. I left for my left eye, and it was very bad, very painful. Recovery took longer than expected, and then now I'm the one who was doing everything for the boss, because I was the branch manager. Banking, everything, stocks, everything was me. So I saw I was not performing that I was supposed to, and I didn't like that. Right. I wouldn't like the same. I wouldn't like to do that for my business. You know, even when working for someone,
want to give 100%.
Exactly. I want to give 110%.
Right.
So I wasn't able to give that. You know, vision is everything, right? And I didn't want to be a liability at the same time, and I wanted time to heal, and I did not want to put my boss's company at a standstill because of my injury. So I quit. And then I had learned so much. I'm like, you know what? I can bake pizzas from home. So with the experience from both companies, I started Queen's Pizza. I just got 2 friends, I called them. I want to start doing this from home. Remember, I had numbers from suppliers from my previous employers. So I called the suppliers, I made orders. So I invited my friends to X-Pizza. For my employees, we made pizza at home. We tried everything from scratch, and Queen's Pizza was born.
Oh my God, Penina, you have such a beautiful story, and you're such a beautiful soul. Like, not so many people would say, you know what, I'm not doing enough. I'm shortchanging my boss. And I'm so glad at least you had the skills. Now, you've gotten out of employment. You've decided to start your own thing. First of all, how long has it been since you started Queen's? And from that point where you're calling your friends to help you out, what has the journey been like? Just walk us through. From that point when you said, was it easy? Did you right away pick up, or like, how did that work out for you?
Quitting was somehow easy because I was in so much pain. And if it's your eyes, you're supposed to keep them rested most of the time. So quitting was not so hard. The hardest part was getting started, because now I'm used to using these machines, this commercial equipment. I am doing things from scratch in the house. If it's dough, I'm using my hands. I don't have a dough mixer, I can't afford it. So it wasn't hard quitting. It was hard getting started and getting it right.
How did you then go about all the difficulties? First of all, what were some of the difficulties? Away from not having, obviously, the equipment, then you also have to worry about a market. Because the reason why it was easy for these other internet, they have a name. Especially with pizza, people have loyalty to certain...
I know, that's the name.
Exactly. So just talk to me about some of the challenges and how you managed to weather them.
Challenges I had then and now are different. So back then, doing it from home, challenges was number 1, getting your name out there. Number 2, getting them to taste your pizza. They have their loyalty to another company. Even their kids love that pizza. So convincing them to taste your pizza just once, and then when they get it right the first time.
You should have called me.
I wish I knew you. Yeah. So the first thing I did was I came up with a name. Called my mom, who was alive still back then. I called her and told her I have a name, Queen's Pizza. She's like, now.
Wait, did you tell me the timelines? Now, when did you start Queen's? Like, around what year?
Okay. Testing it was 2013, December 12th, because it was a holiday, I remember. So I called my friends, Pato and Kevo, they came. We baked, we ate like 10 pizzas.
Yeah. You can always count on boys to eat.
And then in the evening I called my mom, and then I'm like, we've done it. It's not perfect just yet, but I want to get started. Then I'll perfect as I go. And then I gave her the name in the evening of the same day. So the name, I came up with it in a few hours, because I'm like, it has to be deliveries because I'm doing it from home. So she told me, the first thing, tomorrow morning, go to Sharia House and register your name. That's what I did. That time I think it was 800 bob, so I registered a business. And then next thing was getting a logo, getting flyers, making a menu. So I did all that. Then I'll walk around giving menus around the estate of Buruburu. Sometimes we'll feel bad because we get someone throw it out. But you keep doing it because you know you've used money to print that small flyer, small menu. So and then I created a Facebook page. So this started giving me some market. And then even walking around helped, because they can see they can get pizza from their neighbor anytime. Even when the other people have closed, you can call me at midnight. And I will wake up and I'll sort you out. It's money I want. I have to pay my bills, remember? I don't have a check at the end of the month. So if I don't work hard, I go hungry and my doors get locked. So I have to work hard. So the challenges were getting my name out there, getting the quality of my pizza right, and actually keeping, let's say keeping friends, because now you're broke. What people don't tell you as an entrepreneur, you're broke 95% of the time as a startup, because everything you get goes into the business. If you start buying stuff and all that, like us ladies who love shopping, if you go buy shoes, then I don't have money to buy cheese for my pizzas. Yeah.
So there are a lot of sacrifices.
A lot of sacrifices. But I've enjoyed the journey so far.
So when did it then start making sense? At what point, even through all that struggle, waking up at midnight to make pizzas, walking through Buruburu Estate, having your friends to taste it out, at what point did you feel like, you know what, this actually will make money for you? At what point did you break even, or did you feel like, you know what, you're achieving what you set out to achieve?
Call. As I told you, I love talking. I talk a lot. I love networking. I love making friends.
Same.
So I
we
walk.
Should be best friends. I feel like we're so similar.
We need to do that. Okay. So I will walk into offices, share my menus and all that. So at some point, my mom died. Who was the? No, that's okay. It's part of life, right? So she was the first person to see something in me, and she was willing to sell land and invest. But we lost her the following month. So I started working around. After now her passing, you know, I stopped working for several months because of the stress and all that. So to revive this client, now this was my biggest client, it's corporate. I went with 6 small pizzas for free and flyers, and I went during lunchtime. 1 p.m. Yeah. I was there.
When people are hungry.
Yes, I went there, gave free pizzas, gave flyers. Then I spoke to them about Queen's Pizza. I started getting orders from them. So my first big order, I remember I delivered many pizzas for lunch and for dinner. I made profits of 20K.
Wow.
Okay, in a day.
Wow.
I'm like, you know what? Even if this is what I make, like I get 2 orders, that's 40K. That's more than I was getting paid when I was employed, right? I'm like, I am doing this. There is no way I'm going back. So every day was not like that, obviously. But I knew where I was heading. I even had side hustles at some point, because pizza was not, at that time, couldn't pay my bills. But I enjoy making pizzas. Like if I don't bake like for a day or 2, I feel like something is missing. So I love cooking, I love baking the pizzas. So that's what kept me moving. I'm like, you know what? I am going to keep doing this.
So how long into when you had started did things look up for you? Did you make that 20,000 in profit? Did it have to be a long wait, or how long did that actually?
Let's say about 2015.
Wow.
2015, 2016.
So from 2013 when you tested to 2015, you were pretty much just vumilia.
Yes, vumilia, you lazima vumilia, you have to suffer, man. I'm telling you, you lose friends. Penina is always broke. She's not fun. And then, I don't know, nothing comes easy.
Now let's also talk about the aspect of competition, because you're in a space which has big local brands, which has big regional brands, which has even big international brands. What would be your conversation? What would be your statement on competition, and how are you managing to stay on top of that?
You know, the funny thing with pizzas, mostly it's multinationals. We don't have like a Kenyan owned pizza brand. So as I've told you, I worked for 2 before. So I knew what was missing. Some pizzas are way overpriced, that some people are not able to taste pizza, they just hear of pizzas. Right. So that's one. Doesn't mean being cheap and giving bad quality, but you can have that price that one can afford, at least can take a date once in a month or something. And now my products are all fresh, and everything is sourced here in Kenya. I don't outsource. We know we have to grow our economy, right? We have to create jobs. Right. So when it comes to pizza sauce, I don't buy in supermarkets, anything with preservatives, no. I make fresh every morning, a fresh batch every morning. If it's the dough, I make it myself from scratch. Everything, I make it from scratch. That is how I stand out. Yeah.
So with that said then, how do you source your clientele? I mean, I know you've grown since you've had to walk into offices and you're fully, you're just a delivery. You don't have a shop where someone can walk in. You still do your pizzas at home and have them delivered, right? So how do you put the word out there of what you do?
Right now we have a location.
Oh, nice. You now have a location?
Yes.
Tell us about
that. It's month 2. I had an opportunity to be on KCB Lansdowne last year.
Yes, I wanted to hear about that. That was my next question.
I was able to be on KCB Lansdowne last year, which was a blessing. Right. And it was so scary because nothing good comes easy, right? And I got a deal. I got an investor. And we've worked a lot together to try to get it right. Thank you so much. And we opened on August 1st.
Oh, congratulations.
That is last month.
So now with that said, you've now opened your premises, you're 2 months in. What's the dream? Where do you want? I mean, obviously yours has been a journey. It has obviously been a journey. Now that you're where you are, you're competing. You're the first local pizza.
I know, right?
Penina, come on.
It's amazing,
I hope
right?
you give yourself a pat on the back every day. But then now what's the next step going forward?
We're not perfect just yet because we are growing. I've seen so much growth. People have shown so much support. You have no idea. Kenyans are amazing. Right. People are coming in just to say hi and then they buy a pizza and they are happy that I'm in the hood in Buruburu. One of their own is, doing it, doing their thing.
The question is, now that you're here where you are, you've opened up an establishment, you've made it through, what's the next step? What's your dream for Queen's Pizza Deliveries?
Many branches across Nairobi and, God willing, outside Nairobi. But right now, I just want to see my baby right now. Now I have a firstborn. Right now, things are not easy because, now I'm running a business. Before I had this comfort, I'm in my house, right. But now you have employees, you have clients you're facing every day. Exactly, you have targets. So it's not easy, but the dream is to have many branches, several branches across Nairobi. And also to influence someone out there who has their dream and they're lying on and sleeping on it, to do something about it, because nothing is impossible. Yeah.
Penina, thank you very much for coming onto the show. You have such a beautiful story. It's been so long since I sat down with someone and felt as touched as I am. I wish you all the best. And I'm always so rooting for, first of all, ladies, and secondly, for local brands to just make it, and competitively even against the much
You better come
brands.
soon, yeah?
Today.
To Buruburu.
Right after here.
Okay, let's go.
You didn't know?
Pizza on me, though.
What? I was hoping you'd say that. I'm honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I wish you amazing things, and you're doing amazing.
Thank you so much.
Don't go anywhere. We're coming back with you. I have to take a very, very quick break and move on, and I'm really, really touched, guys. I'm struggling to keep myself together, but I need this break to do it. So don't go anywhere. You can keep the conversation going on our social media pages at Metropole TV KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll be right back.
Hi guys.
Hi.
What does it take to run a business that succeeds?
What does an entrepreneur need to do for his business to scale up and outgrow his dreams?
What does a CEO need to know to make a decision?
What exactly makes the stocks move up and down?
Strategy, insights, innovation, growth, leadership, analysis. In an economy that's fast-moving, we are ahead of the game. Armed with data and analysis, we delve deep into the numbers that count, with analysis on key sector and company performance. Join me, Terry-Ann Chebet, on the first of its kind in East Africa, a show that unpacks industries, speaks to business leaders, decision makers, the movers and shakers who steer our economy. The Capital Point, at this time only on Metropole TV.
Welcome back to Entrepreneurs Lounge, and my next guest is founder and senior partner of Favier Productions, Lucy Maina. You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
Favier, so fancy.
Favier means favor in French.
Oh, so now tell me about Favier Productions.
Okay, so Favier is a company. We deal in corporate film and humanitarian documentary coverage. So trying to partner with companies to be able to bring to life the stories that people need to change society with. So just giving a voice to everybody.
So how did you come up with this concept? Did you feel like there were so many untold stories out there? Basically, how did this baby come to you?
So first of all, I studied media, my background. Then I didn't want to really struggle too much trying to get a TV job because it's very popular. So then I got background in photography. So was employed somewhere, learned the discipline of 8 to 5 and how to do everything, then started Favier.
So who do you work with? What's the concept? What does Favier do? On a normal day when you wake up and you go to work, what does your job entail?
Trying to work with NGOs a lot, so we're always partnering with ARU, humanitarian aid, so that we can be able to touch lives and make a difference. And with time, those stories being publicized so much, you're able to change the culture of the country. The same way Rwanda sometimes really make sure their media does not talk about bad things. So trying to then to make a voice of, can we actually communicate good things that will make our public see us better? Yeah.
So who then do you target? Do you, after you're done doing the productions, you're trying to change the narrative? Do you work with broadcast houses as the production? You're the production company that does it, right?
Yes, photography company doing it.
The photography company that does it, and then what happens in terms of now giving a platform, putting the product out there?
So most of the time it's because we are the photography partners for those NGOs. So then for them they're using, yes. And most of the time, we also do corporate photography. So that means you're having an event, you're having a launch, we come and do that. So photography services, solutions.
How long have you been doing this and what has been the journey like from when you started? Because you said you did this because, you have a background in media. You are not trying to go through the hustle that 3/4 of us went through to try and secure that job. You are smarter than a lot of people out there. So my question then is, what has the journey been like, and from where you started to where you are today?
Okay, so it's been 5 years now. Started 2014. I remember my first internship at KNA and went to VOI, and that's how we coined the name Favier. I think I got a lot of favor during that time when I went for internship, gathering news, and then I kept thinking, if I ever start a brand, I had no idea I would call it Favier, because thinking, oh, what's cool that goes with Favier, favor, then came up with Favier. The journey, it's been beautiful. I think we've experienced a lot of favor because how we started is, the first time was you go and I took pictures of a friend, and then from there they publicized it. Then from there people started calling in, so it happened. So that was a lot of favor. Then 2 years down the line, when everything is happening, oh, people are calling you, come to a birthday, come to this. Then I was able to now think, okay, this is a business. I need to be more intentional, put targets, get yourself out there. So it's been a beautiful journey so far.
So you mentioned that you started out in an internship, and it's when that you started saying, if I ever. That's what you didn't know if it would ever happen, but that's when the dream started to get born. My question is, during that time when you were, I would call it employment, much as it was an internship, you were still under someone's stewardship. So what role then did employment play into like what you're now doing, Favier Productions? Do you feel like that's a part of your life you could have done away with and started with this, or does employment help in terms of shaping your business? What skills did it bring on board to what you're doing today?
I love your question.
Oh, I'm glad.
Because I feel like everybody
for you.
meant for me. It was if I didn't go through employment, it would have been impossible to run this, because I feel like people who just start, they don't have the discipline of knowing you have to wake up and you have to meet targets. And especially in our industry, when it's creatives, you want to wake up and know, okay, today I don't feel like editing those pictures. Let me not edit them. I'll do them overnight. So the discipline of actually being able to do that and being employed got me here. And I guess it will be coming challenges, but now when grooming a team, people are now less disciplined because they haven't gone through formal employment.
So at the point when you decided to embark on Favier Productions, what did you have in place? How did this journey start? And the reason I'm asking this is there could be an entrepreneur sitting back home listening to your stories, but they just don't know how to get started. So when you're giving advice to an entrepreneur when it comes to now they have the idea, they have the dream, but getting started, what would you say? What was it like in your experience?
I feel like everybody who starts a business starts thinking, oh, I need to go and buy a big boda to deliver. I need to do this. So let's say, first thing, make sure you have a market. Go test your first 50 people. Once the 50 people can buy from your neighbor, from the passerby, and they can buy, then you can invest. Instead of thinking, I need to go and buy all the big things to start cooking a huge meal and start opening a hotel, yet nobody has tried to eat your food. Your friends have not tried it. Your family has not tried to buy a product from you. So test the brand, the market, because people really start big and all those become losses because then you realize, oops, the demand is not as high. So what I did is, at first, I didn't need to go and buy 1 million cameras to start the company. I knew, okay, can I hire? Can I borrow a friend? So from there, it was able to easy in 6 months know, okay, I've actually made enough money to be able to buy my first camera. Yes, that's what I could give advice to.
That makes a lot of sense. But now if we want to talk about the front of challenges, because 5 years ago, you're young, you're a young girl, you were so much younger then, and like you had got out of school, you had just done an internship. We wouldn't say you had too much experience. So would you say it was a smooth ride right from the get-go? And what are some of the challenges, if any, that you encountered that maybe you can inspire and motivate some other entrepreneurs in case they encounter the same, how they can get out of them?
So one thing, I'm over optimistic, so I easily forget things that dragged me down or that I encountered as challenges.
So you don't
or
remember?
I really appreciate that, okay, this is a growth process, it's not a challenge. So by me thinking of that, then sometimes I forget the late nights that I would have to wait for a friend to bring the camera, or maybe they forgot me, and me thinking, let me go look for many more things. So challenges at the beginning, my mantra is always solve the solution, figure out about how much you struggle after. So then with me knowing that I have to get a solution around this, oh, this has not worked, this has collapsed, how do you solve it first, then you can cry about it later. So my energy of that optimistic then made it a bit easier for me then to bearably go through it and not complain and feel like I'm so beaten down and depressed that this is not working. So I guess with me knowing that it has to go, it has to go, it has to go, made it a lot easier for me to really get there. Yeah.
So Lucy, this 5-year journey that you've been on and everything that you've been through, what would you say have been your greatest achievements, the things that have made it worth it? That every day when you go to sleep, you're like, oh, thank God I started 5-year productions.
Wow. I feel like we're still a small baby, but the milestones I could say is we're working with some of the good brands in the country, and we've met really good company CEOs, and just being able to have conversations with them and interacting with them has been really eye-opening that, okay, this is just normal conversation. And then with that, being able to get to a point where I can appreciate, we can go to a village and want to donate unga and just try to learn, why do you stay here? Why do you not move, take a bus and go to Nairobi and say you're in Kenya? Why are you thinking you're not in Kenya? So I think biggest achievement is now I feel like it's a luxury to be in a space where you want to actually get to understand community, because sometimes you're too busy with your own life and, oh, I haven't met my rent, to think, okay, can I go and understand why are you in Turkana, why are you in this place? So then maybe my mindset slowly changing is a luxury that I would say I'm happy that we can be able to go and change a life or touch a heart.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're working with some of the good brands in the country. Not a lot of people can say, or, you know, when it comes to positioning yourself, how did you manage? How then did you become, like, if I'm an NGO and I'm looking at doing a documentary or trying to tell a certain story or, you know, push a certain narrative, how then did you position yourself as 5-year Productions that as an NGO, you're the person I'll look to do this for me? What do you feel like you do differently from other photographers, from other people doing such productions in this industry?
My answer is excellence. Excellence here to mean the discipline that I know that I learned from formal employment is the same one. Sometimes I know, again, as I said, artistry, industry people are not always as disciplined, or you don't quite mind if you got there 5 minutes later, or if you didn't quite deliver on the second you said you would. So, and also a lot of PR conversations, being able to know that as I'm shooting, I can still have a very proper conversation with you, and I'm not there. I like to say that I don't hope that when I'm coming to your event, you're thinking that paparazzi person is eating at the background behind the tent. Right. You know, how you carry yourself, I always say, they will be like, oh, hey, come sit with us. And at that point, that's the point you're actually having proper conversation for them to think, oh, she actually has a solution, or they seem to actually be in a conversation where she's a corporate person. It's not paparazzi akakai hapo kando. So that's what I would say. So the excellence and the discipline that I learned from formal employment, and now being able to know, let's have a conversation, I want to get to know the person. It's not just that I'm there to take the picture and go home. Yeah.
So when we talk about entrepreneurship and this journey that you've been on, if I were to ask you your 3 greatest lessons, like if I brought you a young person, if I brought you young Lucy when you were just an intern right now, and I asked you to mentor them and start them off on this journey, what would you tell them?
What comes to my mind is know your numbers. I would ask her to keep a receipt of everything. Or did you use this? Did you know your numbers? I wasn't over exorbitant about moving around and doing things with company money, but I would want to know your numbers. Do you know where you're getting your sales from? Is it from referrals? Would you then invest more in that? So just knowing that, okay, I think you're doing more of what works and what is not, but you only know what works by you having documented. So I would ask her to really put in place those systems where she would be able to know, let me not invest in this marketing platform and do this because that's where this is giving us more results. Yeah.
Lucy, you're doing great, and thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I really, really hope that Favier Productions keeps getting more Favier.
Amen.
See what I did there?
Yes, I did.
As you keep going on to what you're going, keep doing amazing things and keep inspiring young people out there. We're going to take a very, very quick break, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, we have so much more for you right here on Entrepreneurs Lounge. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs Lounge, and it's time for that much coveted and waited upon segment that we call the quick fire round. Now, Penina, Lucy,
yeah,
I know you guys have also been waiting for this round. Maybe anxiously, I don't know how you've been waiting, but I know you've been waiting. So just to give you a brief of what happens in this round is I'll ask 5 very general questions. The trick is to get the right answer out fastest. So when I ask, try not to cut me. Of course, you might think you know what I'm going to ask, but you don't. So let me get the whole question out. And then if you know the answer, just say it out fast. If you say it together at the same time, you'll both get half a point. Mm-hmm. But whoever says it out loud first gets 1 point. At the end of the round, highest correct answers wins our quick fire round. Queen. And your tiara shall be handed to you. Ready, guys? You look ready, guys.
Okay, yeah.
Just of course you are.
Yeah, should, right?
Okay. I'm starting right now. Quick fire question number 1. Which is the world's most popular brand of cigarettes?
What?
Guys, it starts with an M. Don't overthink it. Which is the world's most popular brand of cigarettes? They used to even have an ad on TV. Pardon?
Mastermind?
No.
Of course not.
So they used to have an ad on TV for the longest time of a cowboy, like some cool guy.
What?
It starts with an M, ends with an O.
What? I have no idea.
The color of the pack is red, like your red, white. Guys, come on, you're not even trying. But it's a good thing. That obviously shows you're not smokers.
Oh, the only thing that comes is Sportsman. Remember, it was red and white.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that
it starts
comes.
with M. Should I just tell you?
I don't know. I have no idea.
She looks like she's...
I should know. I'm just...
Guys, it's Marlboro. Have you heard of Marlboro?
I have, and I see how it's written.
I'll give it to you just in case you guys, it's okay.
We don't do cigarettes.
No points. I don't
We're good girls.
It's just general knowledge. Fine, guys. That one, no one has under points. Question number 2. Which classic Nokia game was made available for other smartphones via an app in 2015? Guys, the Nokia game, the classic Nokia game. Like even when you had
Snake?
those little... Pardon?
Snake?
That's it.
Oh yeah? Okay.
It's Snake!
What, is the name Snake? Snake something. I remember it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the most popular Nokia game. So a point to Lucy.
Yay!
Question number 3. How many continents are there?
How many what?
Continents. Guys, continents. Africa.
6.
No, come on, guys. How many continents?
She's counting. Me, I'm just thinking.
Close. Very, very. Yes.
Yeah,
7.
I actually did think it was 7.
It is 7.
I think you were guessing, right?
I know there are 7-ish, 6, 8 there.
Penina, this one is yours. Let me look for one. No. I have, let's first, this one is going to be yours.
3 down, 2 to go.
3 down, 2 to go. Question number 4. I'm really trying to give you this one. Which zodiac sign? Do you guys know zodiac signs? Like, you know, when they ask you, what are you? I'm a Scorpio, I'm a Gemini. You know those ones.
You only know your month, but continue.
No, you're going to know this. Which zodiac sign? And Penny, I'm trying to give you this one. She has to. I'm really trying to give you this one. Which zodiac sign is half man, half horse?
Gosh. It's not Pisces, right? I'm guessing mine.
Starts with S. Half man. In fact, the man is an archer. He has an arrow. Half man, half horse.
Sagittarius?
Oh wow, you did. Good. I just know my.
It is Sagittarius. Why do you think it's Sagittarius?
No, I only know my star.
What's your zodiac?
Cancer.
That's why I said Pisces. Because
fine.
Actually, wow.
I
know you were gonna get
it. So 2-1. This is the final question, guys, of the day. This is the tiebreaker question. What is the largest bone in the human body?
Largest?
Bone.
Bone marrow?
No.
Of course not.
It's the thigh bone. It's also known as the thigh bone. This bone right here is the largest bone in the human body, but what's it called? It starts with F and ends with R.
What?
Guys, science, think. Yeah, someone's even whispering it. Someone on set and I'm going to throw them off. It's the longest bone is also known as the thigh bone, or guys, the femur. Have you heard of the femur before?
I will read it out.
FEMUR.
We're entrepreneurs, but we're not geniuses. We're just entrepreneurs.
No way.
What do you mean? You've never heard of that word in your life?
Not really. Like, I don't want to say something about primary and not learning that, but not really.
Oh my God, I'm sure you learned this. Someone who's Kenyan here on set said it, so I'm sure at least at some point. Maybe that's the day you missed class. Guys, so who's the winner? Ah, you're such a good winner. So you are our winner, regardless. We're very happy to have you on the show. So, your tiara will be handed to you as you leave. So unfortunately, we've come to the end of this episode of Entrepreneurs Lounge, but you can keep the conversation going on our social media pages at Metropole TV KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. As usual, we've been shooting at Daughter Showman exclusive furniture in Westlands on Parklands Road. Don't go anywhere.
Hello and welcome to Eye on the Money, the show that gives you insights into how to improve your financial well-being as well as make your money work for you. I'm Ingrid Nantege. Today we're going to look at how as a borrower you can negotiate for better interest rates. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta recently signed into law the Finance Bill 2019. The Finance Act 2019, among other provisions, repeals Section 33B of the Banking Act that provides for the capping of bank interest rates. The repeal of Section 33B of the Banking Act is expected to enhance access to credit by the private sector, especially the micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as cut out exploitative Shylocks and other unregulated lenders. However, it also gives banks the liberty to set their own lending rates, which could result in exorbitant interest rates charged to the borrower, the main reason the interest rate cap was instituted in the first place. Joining me in studio to help us understand how we can best shield ourselves from the high interest rates following the repeal of the interest rate cap is Esther Maruga, the Acting General Manager of Metropole Credit Reference Bureau. You're very welcome to the show, Esther.
Thank you so much.
I'm always happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Are you feeling at home because you're at home?
Yeah, sure I am.
So, Esther, today you're here to help us understand the repeal of the interest rate cap. So there's been a very heavy conversation around this, especially most recently. There's been a lot of back and forth, but finally the decision was reached. The interest rate cap was repealed. Initially, in the first place, the reason it was put there was to, help protect the borrower, just enhance access to credit. But now that it has been removed, what should we expect? What will be the repercussions in your view?
Okay, thank you so much again, Ingrid, for having me on this show. Maybe we can start by putting the interest rate or the capping into context.
Perfect.
Why was it introduced? So it was introduced to protect the borrower, to be able to access credit. But we have what we call unintended consequences of the interest rate capping. So what we saw is, and this has been on the KBA, the outline that they have put, that 1.2 account, there was a decline of 1.2 accounts in terms of the loan that were opened within that period. The other thing is that 45% increase of the borrowers who already had loans, meaning the banks were just lending to those who already have accounts or have loans. So what that meant is that we actually locked out the SME, the small mwananchi, the mama mboga, as we put it, from accessing credit. So what the interest capping is coming, and by the repeal of the interest capping, what we'll be seeing is access now to credit. The question is, after you access the credit, at what interest rate are you getting this loan for? So what will happen is that the market now, the interest rates will be determined by the market dynamics. So the market forces will say whether you will borrow at this level or at that level, which is the interest rate now. So what will happen is that the banks now will need to come in and provide innovative products that do not lump all the borrowers at the same band. Because with the interest capping, everyone was getting interest rates at the same rate, which was 4% from the CBR rate. So what will happen is that we expect the market now to expand, to be able to look at this borrower, profile their risk levels, and attach an interest rate to the borrower. That means if you are a risky borrower, you will be charged more by the bank. If you are low risk, then you expect that the interest rates will be lower. So if you look at the consequences or what some of the repercussion is that positive repercussion of interest rate capping is access. The market now will expand. The banks now has an opportunity to come up with innovative products that they can be able to extend to the borrower. On the downside then, it means that the borrower will be susceptible now to high interest rate. What will happen is that the borrower now needs to understand what are the terms and conditions that I'm getting myself into, because it was pretty obvious. If I had a loan, I knew the interest rate that come with it. But here now, there's a responsibility of the borrower to get to know what is this interest rate that I'm being charged, which now will help us to open up the market, where you have the banks, and the banks were limited in terms of where the borrower that they consider as low risk, because if you cannot be able to stretch your margins in terms of getting a profile of a borrower who will actually pay you, it means that the risky borrowers had no opportunity even to come into the bank and get a loan. So it's important for the borrower to ensure that they get to know what terms would the banks be giving me in terms of the interest rates. Yeah.
That's a very good picture you've painted there. Now, you've mentioned that with the repeal of the interest rate cap, then we're left in the hands of the market forces. My next question then will be, does the market have the capabilities to ensure then that the interest rates don't over balloon? Is there a situation around that, and how does that happen?
So one of the things, because banks are in business, and because they're in business, they want to lend, and once they lend, the customer pays and pays together with the interest, meaning that they have the intention is that the moment they disburse the loan, this customer will pay. But the biggest challenge is that whether the customer will pay and whether they will pay on time. So the issue of non-performing accounts then appear or come into play. So we are looking at the risk level of this borrower and saying, if I'm a bank and I have customers, can I be able to ascertain whether these customers will pay and whether they will pay on time? If I'm able to ascertain that this customer will pay, it means that I have evaluated the risk And what is the risk here? The risk here is an outcome that the expected outcome is different from the actual outcome. And in this case, if you lend, you expect that the customer or the borrower will pay you. So if they don't pay you, you're already at a risky engagement. So we are saying that the banks will be looking at a customer and looking at this borrower and saying, will this borrower be able to pay me? So they have to put in capabilities or come up with initiatives to be able to ascertain how do we predict that this customer will pay back. One of the things is the credit information sharing. When you have the CRB, on the CRB we keep information about the borrower. This is what we call the payment behavior. So from the payment behavior, then we are able to come up with what we call probability of default. Are we able to look at your past payment behavior and predict how you'll pay, which now determines your credit worthiness. So the credit worthiness then becomes very important for the bank to evaluate the risk level of the borrower. Other than the credit worthiness, the bank will also put in place other what we call other requirements or other attributes that they'll be looking at for the borrower who meets that threshold. For instance, they will have issues with loan to value ratio. So on the loan that you are borrowing, the amount that you're borrowing, what is your investment? Say for instance, there's a house you want to borrow to invest in a house. What is the contribution for you as a borrower? Right. Maybe it's an asset finance, you want to buy a car. What is your contribution to that car in terms of your investment into it? What have you put in as you go to the bank to borrow? Is it additional amount or is there your own contribution? The other thing the banks will be looking at is the debt to income ratio. What is your income level versus the debt that you have accumulated or the debt that you have, so that then they're able to say if they lend to you, then you'll be capable of paying back. The other thing that you find the bank looking at is also your stability, what's the employment income, what other income streams do you have. We also have other simple characteristics of your stability in terms of where you live, in terms of where you're a business owner. Those are characteristics that can be able to help the bank to determine what is your risk level. Then also we are in an environment of big data and analytics, so the banks will come up with algorithms that will be able to determine what are your risk level based on the transaction data that you have. You've been banking with the bank. You also we have transaction data that they have accumulated. Then of course we'll be combining that with the credit information data which they can get from the CRBs.
Esther, just to dwell a bit on that point, and just for purposes of clarity, you've touched on it, but then in the past we've seen a situation where some borrowers have been locked out on account of non-performing loans. Should we expect the situation to change, or what do you think is going to happen for now in the reality of the repeal of the interest rate cap, especially to that particular category of people who've been locked out, like I said, because of non-performing loans?
When you are locked out as a non-performing, it's because you have a non-performing loan. It means that you have an account that you're not paid, and with the prudential guidelines here we are saying that you haven't paid that account for 90 days. So that's already a red flag. And as I say, the banks are in the business, they're actually in business. So what does it mean? That even if they extend that credit to you, you will not pay back. So the question is, do you have other positive accounts that are able to outweigh any negative components, say, on your credit report? Because what will happen now is how the banks evaluate your credit worthiness. If you have a non-performing account, you become very unfavorable for any financial institution to actually lend to you, because you are already considered a high risk. And if you are high risk, then you find that the banks are unlikely to come in and actually look at reconsider your loan. So we will say that based of course the business processes, you already a high risk and it will be unlikely for you to get a loan. So the most important thing, if it's a borrower and you have a non-performing account, is start making good your credit report, your credit score, start improving it, so that then you become favorable to the banks. As you go out there to look for a loan, then you'll become a favorable customer, because that's what the financial institutions will be looking for. Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on to the show, Esther. You're providing valuable insight. Don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to talk so much more about what borrowers need to do to shield themselves from high interest rates in this interest rate cap repeal era. I will take a very quick break, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we have so much more for you on Eye on the Money. However, you can keep the conversation going on our social media pages at Metropole TV KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Eye on the Money, and today on the show we're talking about how, as a borrower, you can protect yourself from high interest rates now that the interest rate cap has been repealed. I beg your pardon. And with me in studio we have Esther Maruga, the Acting General Manager of the Credit Reference Bureau, that is Metropole. Now, Esther, before we went to break, you are breaking it all down for us in terms of what to expect, what as a lender they'll be looking out for, what as a borrower you need to have in place. However, I need to ask, and this is because you mentioned that now it's going to be left to the market to decide the interest rates. However, my question is, as a borrower, is there a way in which I can negotiate for better interest rates? How can I then take advantage of this market that is now liberalized?
So, as I said, as a borrower, you want to make yourself favorable to any lender. So the first thing is to make sure that your creditworthiness is on point. And what do I mean by your creditworthiness being on point? Here I'm talking about your creditworthiness. As a borrower, you can be able to demonstrate that when you get a loan, you actually pay. So we'll be looking at your payment behavior. For the current loans or the loans that you've been having, how have you been paying? Are there incidences of missed payments? Are there cases where we find any adverse action on your profile? Say, for instance, there's a bounce check, you have inquiries, multiple inquiries on the same day, meaning you're making mass applications. You have issues with, as I said, multiple credit applications. So on your accounts, the accounts that you have, how have you been paying? So we'll be tracking your monthly payment, your installments. Are you able to pay those installments on time? And based on that information that we collect, then as a bureau, we're able to assign you a credit score. And this credit score is a measure of your probability of default. And the score, the Metropole score ranges from 200 to 900, with a lower score indicating that you are a high risk, and a high score indicating that you are a low risk. So those are some of the things we'll be looking at. As a borrower, are you able then to track your credit score, to be able to monitor it? And this will mean that you're able to get to know the accounts that have been listed, or you have had that information on the bureau. How often do you pay? That is, are you able to pay installment as it falls due? And that way, if you have a clean record, then by the time even the borrower is looking for your profile, meaning at the time when you're borrowing, the bank will already see that you have a good credit history. And based on that, then you find that we have then you can be able to take advantage of the interest capping, of the interest rates that are favorable. One of the things maybe I just need to bring into context is that the governor, that is the CBK governor, has also been very categorical on how the banks should run now past the interest capping.
Right.
And one of the things which was there is coming up with customer-centric processes. You're calling it the banking sector charter, which has 4 pillars. And one is now coming up with having customer-centric processes. So what that means is that even as a borrower, as you go out to the bank will have processes that are able to give you more information, have full disclosure, so the issues of hidden charges then do not crop up. The issue of other underlying, statements within the terms and conditions do not come up. Then we also mentioned about the risk-based pricing. With the interest capping now out of the way, then the banks now are able to extend to borrowers who would be considered high risk in an environment where we have interest capping.
Right.
But without the interest capping now, they can be able to price their loans higher and be able now to accommodate. Yes, so the market that we are looking at, the SME who are deemed to be high risk, then this is an opportunity for them now to take advantage, because the conversation will change from you have been denied credit to whether you're willing to take the credit, and which will cost you more. So it's a willingness of the borrower also to absorb the credit, but at a higher cost. So those are some of the things that will be coming in with the interest capping being out of the way, and we expect that the market now will become, we expect to see very innovative products also coming from the banks in that quarter. Yeah.
Esther, you mentioned something that was very important, and the first thing you mentioned is, as a borrower, you need to be on top of your credit history. You need to be on top of your credit score. But then a lot of people out there will tell you, like, they don't know how to do this. So practically speaking, how can I do this?
So to get to know your credit score, you have to access your credit report or the credit score from licensed credit bureaus. So as a borrower, then you have to take the initiatives to actually access your credit report, and every bureau has a way that customers can be able to access their credit report, and the credit report will have your credit score. For Metropole, what we have is that you can get this report through a USSD, where you dial *433# and you get your credit report. You can walk into our offices, the regional offices, and or the where we are stationed. We also have partnership with Huduma centers, where customers can just walk in with their IDs and be able to get their credit report. On the credit report, then we will give you your credit score, and the credit score will be indicative of how your accounts have been performing. Right. So if you have a non-performing account, and here, as I said, with a non-performing account is an account that has not been serviced for 90 days as per the prudential guidelines, then you expect that your credit score will be lower. Right. The other thing is that on the credit report, it's important also to confirm that the information that is actually reported on you is accurate. Right. Because if the information is not accurate, it means that your score, which we have calculated based on that information, will actually be erroneous. So it's important for you, once you get your credit report, confirm that the information is accurate. For instance, if you had a loan, you want to know that have the banks or the financial institutions been updating your record month to month. So then so you get what we call a credit score based on the account information that have been given on you, which will demonstrate the payment behavior, your length of credit history, which is now aggregate to that credit score. The other important thing is not only for you to get the credit score, you also need to monitor. Right. So what we have CRBs again, one on the regulation, the CRB regulation, borrowers or customers are entitled to one free credit report per year. But if you are an active borrower, then you like to know who is making inquiries on your profile. Exactly. At what point does my credit score change? So what we have done is that we have enabled the customer now to subscribe for those services, so that when an inquiry is done on your profile, as a borrower, you get a notification. When your credit score changes, as a borrower, you get a notification. That means you're able to fix any adverse issue that could crop up before you can even go out and borrow. And that's the kind of empowerment that we would like, because by you understanding your credit report, by you understanding your credit score, that tells you whether you are credit worth. And that means when you go to the bank, as you get to know the interest rates that are being charged, then you can be able to float and say, but my records are like this. Right. And that now will bring in the conversation, as a borrower, am I able to negotiate for better terms with the banks or with the lenders?
Beautifully put. Thank you very much for coming on to the show, Esther. You've done a very, very amazing job in demystifying so many perceptions out there. There's a very actually big conversation going around of we're finished. We're finished. Now that the interest rate cap has been repealed, we're finished. But I feel like you've done a very good job in explaining to us exactly how to go in there to negotiate for better rates, what's in the mind of the bank, of the financial institutions, and how to stay on top of your credit score. Thank you very much. You've been amazing. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show today, but as usual, I'll leave you with a financial tip. History dictates that interest rates will not stay low forever. But the speed at which rates rise and how far they climb is difficult to predict. Those who pay no attention to interest rates can miss out on valuable opportunities to profit in a rising rate environment. There are several ways that investors can cash in on rising rates, such as buying stocks of companies that consume raw materials, laddering their CD or bond portfolios, strengthening their positions in the dollar, and refinancing their homes. You can also have an honest conversation with a financial advisor on how to profit from rising interest rates. That's where we'll wrap it up today on Eye on the Money, but you can keep the conversation going on our social media pages at Metropole TV KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm Ingrid Nantege. Don't go anywhere because we have so much more amazing programming coming your way. Thanks, Esther.
Thank you.
You are great.
Businessmen are doers. Businessmen, they're also thinkers. Businessmen are innovators. How did you come up with this idea? How did you decide to give back to it? And where is the need? Where's the gap?
It was a natural gravitation.
So the doers, the thinkers, and the innovators all catch up on the Entrepreneurs Lounge with me, Ingrid Nantege, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. only on Metropole TV.
This system is problem-solving system in agriculture.
Aquaponics is field grow plants and fish in one system.
I don't even use anything in the greenhouse. No inorganic fertilizer.
For Kenya, low and mid-tech systems are optimal because every farmer with low education can use the system.
If you eliminate the aqua center, the aquaculture section, the hydroponic section will not do. There's a limit for monocropping where everything fails. We utilize the economies of scale. You know, the higher your scale of production is, the more the profit margin. Rabbit urine is medicine. I should give you a glass after this. From fish now, from aquaculture. This is the collection tank. It's called a sump. So all the water comes in here. Then that's where we test now the water qualities. Like this cable, what you are seeing here, this a pH sensor for potential of hydrogen, to know how much hydrogen we have in case of acidity and alkalinity of the water. This is a pH sensor. So we put it on styrofoam to float. You know, you can't just dip it inside. It's an electronic device. Okay. So styrofoam helps it float, and that's on water.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So now the pipes bring in the water here.
Yes.
Then you have a pump inside here.
Yes. Yeah.
Now pumps it.
Yeah, the big pipes for inlet, water from the aquaculture section. Then the small pipe, the smaller pipe, that's an outlet. Now we have a pump that will pump the water and pass it through the smaller pipe back into the biofilter.
All right.
Yes. That is if you are pumping to the biofilter. And the pipes you see, the big pipe, this one, it's from the fish. Now this is the outlet. Yes, the outlet comes into the sump. Then we have two pipes that have joined to the big pipe now from the aqua section, aquaculture section. Yeah, these two pipes. This one to feed now the basin in the hydroponics area. So if I open here, this valve, I just open it, and the water will stop going into the sump. It will start now flowing into the basins, into the hydroponic system. Now this water, and I only do it in the mornings or late in the evening when temperatures are low. Yes.
And the other one?
The same. This one takes it into, this one goes into the lower structure, is the lower shade net. This one is in the upper here, right here. You can see it just here. So you just open and the water, you see, it's flowing. Yes.
Pipes over here, so which is which?
So this is an oxygenator.
Yes.
Yes, for oxygen.
Okay.
Yeah, we have channeled it into our greenhouse. Sometimes we need to aerate our crops. Maybe if they stay long and the temperature is too high. It's also a way of regulating temperatures, making sure that you lose excess heat in the water and keeping it at required temperature. That is if I see it, the graphs are maybe going high because of higher temperatures. So that's when you open now the aerator. It will, kind of fan water to lose excess heat. Yeah, to regulate the temperatures.
Then the sludge comes.
So this is air. This is air. Okay. Then this is sludge now.
So
they're going down.
Here, it goes to the ground in the pipe.
Yes, into our test greenhouse. This is a test greenhouse. I put it up to see if we can produce organic tomato. Yeah, people all over the world believe you cannot do organic tomato.
Yes.
Here I've not put a single chemical.
Let's see. Let's put it to a test now. And
the fertilizer here, it's fish sludge.
Okay.
Fish sludge and rabbit urine. We also have rabbit that we collect the urine.
Okay.
So the urine is both a pesticide and a fertilizer, foliar feed.
Yes.
So if you spray the rabbit urine, you dilute it properly, and you spray it on your crops, it will be foliar feed and a pesticide as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's see.
So that's what we are doing here. We are trying to do. We have harvested. We have sold. They are very sweet. I can't stop eating them. Very healthy.
It comes
here. Yeah, it comes in direct through the pipe, and now I've channeled it in drip lines. Just normal drip lines, only that I made the perforation, or rather the holes, slightly bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, because the sludge is thicker than water. So it comes and it's
look very healthy.
Yeah, they are. Yes. They are. This is rabbit urine and fish sludge. That's all I'm using in here. Wow. No single chemical. So they are organic and very sweet. You can just pick and eat. You don't even need to wash. There's no chemicals in. Yeah, rabbit urine is medicinal, so you don't have to worry about it. You can see.
Like this one.
Yes, this is our tomato. Very organic. Yeah, we harvested. We've been selling. People come for them all the time. So we just sold a few last evening. You can see. We have cherry. I was also trying to do a cherry here. You see, we have them.
So different.
They're very nice. Maybe if you talk to me nicely, I can give you one of these. Just one.
Just one?
Yes, just one. They are too sweet. I can't give you all of them.
Okay, so you said you can eat. Do I put took you to task?
Yeah,
that?
it is.
Okay.
It is. It's.
Let me
They're nice. You just.
If I go to hospital.
Yes, you come back for. You come back to me. Yes. Yeah. You see.
Very sweet.
Yeah. I mean, so that you don't say
Yes,
that
I don't
guy.
say that, yeah.
That guy gave me something and I don't know what it was. It's a tomato. And you see, I'm not lying, it's very sweet.
Yes, very sweet.
Yeah. Oh, this is now good breakfast.
So now this one, no chemical has gone in here?
No chemical. Only rabbit urine and fish sludge. Like I said, you can see the drip lines. We just open it.
Yeah.
The sludge just come direct to the roots. And it's very, you can see they are very green. The sludge, like I said, ammonia is very rich in nitrogen. Ammonia is basically nitrogen. A lot of nitrogen with a little of hydrogen in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the plants will find a way of utilizing the ammonia, the nitrogen in ammonia. It will be first converted into nitrates and nitrates, then they'll be utilized. Yes. Now there's no supplement that has been done since transplanting. Okay. This crop has been established without a single chemical, inorganic chemical. Yes. And so this was
pests, no diseases, nothing.
Pests, of course, you will always have them. The white flies, we control using rabbit urine.
Okay.
If there is any, right now we don't have much. Yeah, but if I see any, I just come with rabbit urine, spray using a knapsack.
Yeah.
They all die.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what you're doing here.
This is really nice. Yeah. So and then now from here, now you've tested.
This was experimental. Yeah, it was experimental. That's you see the structure is not very big and it's kind of makeshift.
Yes.
Now I'm putting up another greenhouse, a bigger one. Now I'm going massive, and I want to do cherry.
Oh.
Yes, I want to do cherry tomato.
Okay.
Yeah, using this system.
Because you've tested, now it's working.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've not bought anything so far in here, just the seed. Yes. So from here, maybe I will take you to our hydroponic system. Now where we're doing our lettuce. We are doing different varieties of lettuce and any other salad crop. We are going to do all of them.
All right.
Yes. This is a shade net where now we are doing hydroponic lettuce. Yeah, shade net is a specific structure. It's a perfect ecosystem, or rather microclimate for lettuce. That's why now I use a shade net and not a greenhouse. There's a very big difference between a shade net and a greenhouse.
What exactly?
It's in terms of solar intensity.
Yeah.
Yes, it's different in here. Yes. A greenhouse will trap solar radiation such that it raises the heat inside, while this one will absorb. Yeah, this one will absorb, and as well it has perforation, so some of them will escape. So there is none that is trapped, and most of them, especially the infrared, are absorbed. Okay. So you'll realize when you get in here, when it's so hot, when you get in here, it's cooler than outside. Temperatures are always cooler in the shade net. Yeah, than even outside. So it's always cooler than even room temperature.
So if it rains, the rain will just...
Yeah, if it rains, this material is very tough. You cannot even tie it. It's very tough. So rain, no matter the intensity, it has no problem on our crops. It will come in form of, like sprays, little sprays. In fact, it will wash, in case there is any dust, because dust also comes in. This being a desert, of course, we have windstorms. So when there is some light showers or heavy showers, it will wash the dirt. Yes, so we have no problem there.
Yeah, show me around.
Okay.
So you were saying about the shade net?
Yeah, it's a shade net. I preferred using the shade net instead of a greenhouse. There are many advantages that come with the shade net. Temperature regulation in here, you can feel it's cooler than even out there. Actually, it's cooler out there by far. When out there temperatures are room temperature maybe 24, 25 degrees. In here you can get it up to 18, 19 degrees in here. That's different. The moment you get in here, you get. If you check my scale, that's the average temperature. It's about 20 degrees for the greenhouse. No matter how the temperatures get hot out there. So these are newly planted. They're about 2 weeks old. This is a variety we call it Ronali. Ronali green. People like it. It's very nice. This is we just finished harvesting, so we are making it ready for planting. Yeah. So the shade net has many advantages. Like I said, this place is a semi-arid area. It has a lot of dust. So you will get dust occasionally settling on our veggies. So when it rains, it lets the water in. It will wash the dust away. Yeah, then you get your veggies clean. Then another advantage is, of course, this semi-arid area. We have water scarcity. You know, water is a scarce resource here. So when it rains and this net, you know, allows water to flow in, rainwater. It's an advantage to us. We can collect that water. And you know, rainwater is much better than, you know, tap water, because rainwater is soft water. It has very little chemical. Its pH is perfect. Actually, rainwater is the best for crops. So this is an advantage to us. We'll be able to have that water. Although not much, but at least
you have it
comes and it will dilute what we have here. At least now it improves the quality. So that's the advantage of this material.
Okay, so now we're talking from the fish from there.
Yeah, this is the aqua. You can call it aqua section. Yeah, you can call it aqua section.
So then the water from there now comes to your crops.
Yes, now from the aquaculture area, those two pipes, will drain water into these basins. These are just basins, constructed basin using, you know, this is a dam liner, just a normal dam liner. These are basin, we just reinforce them using different materials. To create a basin. Then we put an inorganic material on top, the styrofoam. We use it because it's durable. It's durable and it's light, and it floats on water. Yes, so that's the material we use. Then we plant our lettuce on top. This is a variety called Aviram. It's a variety called Aviram.
This one is ready for harvest, or
not yet? This is 4.5 weeks. Just about 1.5 or 1 week to go. It will be ready for harvest.
All right. So now let's talk about the hydroponic system that you're applying here. So what goes into growing the crops in here?
First, I'll start with the water from the aquaculture. That water, that is, of course, you need to renew the water. You can't just use same water all year round in your fish. You know, they'll need clean water occasionally. So once in a while, maybe once a week or so, we drain the fish. You know, we drain the ponds, the fish ponds. And the water comes in here, it fills into these basins. We have set it in a way so that it flows by gravity. That one is to minimize and the cost. You know, of course, you don't have to pump every basin. Yeah, you don't have to pump. So it flows by gravity from the top basin all the way down, and the excess water will flow into the sump. We have another sump, an underground tank. Yes, that's now where excess water will go, and most of the water there is used up by the crops. So it's less ammonia and less other, you know, elements that are undesirable for fish. So we will pump water from that sump back to the fish. Yes, now that is what completes the loop. So the water from fish comes in here into the basin. Just all of them are the same. So these are crops, hydroponic. You see? Yeah, there's no soil. So this crop, the roots are just floating in water and getting the excess nitrogen from water, from fish water. This water comes in rich in ammonia. Yes. Now ammonia under specific temperatures, that's below 18 degrees, is converted into usable forms. The ammonia radical is NH-4. Yes, that's the most usable form, because it's easier to be converted into nitrates and nitrates. So under very low temperatures, that's why I let the fish water into these basins early in the morning or late in the evening, not when it's hot like now. Because when it's hot,
now if you let it in,
it it's not. It has it has more ammonia gas than ammonia ion.
It's usable.
Yes.
Okay. And so just a bit, so probably for the viewer to understand, what is in this trough?
This is water. It's just water. Like I said, it's just a basin, dam liner, then water, water from fish. Yeah, from the aquaculture unit. Then we plant the crops. It's simple as that. You just plant the crop. These are net caps, just to hold the crop, of course, in position to hold it. Otherwise, it will sink, or maybe the roots will not have a proper direction. This one is just to direct the roots.
So an interesting point to note. How now do you plant the crop?
Okay, this is way old, so this is not how we plant. I'll show you how we plant. Of course, you will have to start with an empty basin. I'll show you. We'll pick an empty basin and I'll show you. So this is a variety, we call it iceberg. Yeah, it's very nice.
This is the same as well?
Yes, it's the same, just different ages. This is Ronali. Yeah, it's about 2 weeks old. This one is 1 week old. It's called Raviv Kel.
Raviv?
Yes, Raviv Kel.
That's Ronali, that's Raviv.
Yes, this is Aviram, like I said.
This is that?
Aviram, yeah, it's the same. This is about 2 weeks now.
Oh.
Yes. That one is 4.5 weeks. Yeah, this is 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yes. This is our less than a week. We just planted the other day. It's about 4 days old now. Yes. Then this is Rubili. People struggle saying Rubili, so they say Ronali red.
Oh.
Yeah, it looks like Ronali, red. So they say Ronali red.
But it's Rubili.
Yeah, this is Rubili.
Okay.
It's called Rubili.
Yeah, and the green one?
Yeah, this one now it's Raviv Kal.
Okay.
The young one I shown you. This is Raviv Kal. When now this is mature, it's ready for harvest. Yes.
Okay.
In fact, we just have. You see the blank spaces. All the blank spaces is because of harvesting. We just harvested. Yeah, this morning. Yeah, we harvested this morning.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're showing me how to plant.
Yeah. So assuming this is an empty basin, we already harvested. Assuming all this is harvested.
Yes.
Yeah. These are the net caps I was talking about.
Okay.
Net caps. Yes. Then we have we use a soilless media. Of course, this is hydroponics. So we don't use soil.
At all.
So you need a sterile media because soil. We assume the reason why you're using hydroponics is because of the soil-borne problems.
Yes.
Yes.
So
So
that is what we want to avoid.
yes, what we want to avoid. So we don't use soil.
All right.
So we use a less reactive or a less harmful media.
So material that's not prone to those problems that the soil has.
Yes, there are several media. We have perlite, we have vermiculite, we have rock wool, glass wool. Some people use glass wool.
Yeah.
We have even rock wool, coco peat. We have peat moss.
Yes.
There are several. Okay. So the choice of the media to use, your pocket will dictate that.
Yeah.
Yes, it depends on your ability.
Afford.
Yeah, what you can afford.
Yeah.
Is what you use.
Okay.
So for us, we use rock wool. Rock wool is good. It's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we use it.
So rock wool is if you're talking about grades, that would be up there.
Rock wool for this system, hydroponics is good. I will say rock wool is good because other material like vermiculite, perlite, coco peat, and the peat moss, they will kind of disintegrate in water. They'll disintegrate. They'll have an empty net cap.
Yes.
Yeah. So rock wool is kind of solid. It's wool.
Yes.
It's like wool. Okay. It's just a shredded wool. It's fiber rock.
Yes.
Yes. So it's kind of wool. So it will not disintegrate.
Okay.
It will stay compact.
Yeah.
So it will hold the roots.
So you put it in here.
Yeah. We first of all we have to raise a seed bed, a nursery. Then when they attain a certain age, about 2.5 weeks, when they have 3 leaves, that's when now we transplant them.
So now a question. The nursery, do you use that soil or is still going to be aqua?
Now the nursery, like I said, you take the seed trays, we have the seed trays,
yes,
and you fill with rock wool.
Oh.
You just fill the perforations, I'll show you. Yes. Do you have any? Okay, okay. Let me just show you, I think I have one here.
With that we take break. But remember, you can keep this conversation going on our social media pages. That is at Metropole TV KE on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Use the hashtag #TheFarmJournal. Use hashtag #TheFarmJournal. Welcome back. In case you're joining us, this is the Farm Journal and we are out here at Ngong. We're hanging out with Emmanuel at Kikaboni Farm and he's taking us through this amazing invention and how they're applying it here so that they can, feed the nation in a healthy way. So this is the
seed tray. This is where now we do where we raise our seedling. Yeah, our seed bed, and that's where we raise them. You have to control so that we know the exact number that we have, because every single seed counts.
Yeah.
So rock wool, it comes in. It's like a mattress. It comes in a roll. Okay. It's in a roll. Okay, you just buy it's a roll. Rock wool is an insulating material. It's used in construction. Okay. If you go to places where they use heat, maybe in big kitchens, where they will have to insulate heat to control heat, they use rock wool. Okay. Covered in aluminium foils.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the same rock wool you're using here. Yeah, we don't use glass wool because glass wool can be a problem. Yeah, it's not organic. Yes, we use rock wool.
So this is organic?
This is, it's organic. It's a rock. This is like granite. It's just, it's just shredded and, polymerized, and you get this.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So then, what happens now?
So this Rocuna, it comes in a roll. This is our seed tray. Okay. So we are starting from baby steps. I'm taking you through baby steps. Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Yes.
So listen. So you pinch your rockwool from the roll. You just pinch it. Yeah. About this size, just small size. Yes. All right. You dip it in water, or you take the the amount that you want to use. Dip it in water. Make it wet first for easier pinching and relating size. Yes. Then you just insert into this. Into this hole. Just put it. All of them is just the same process. You just insert them. Okay. Once you insert that, you take we use a pin. A pin, we have them where we do all this. We have a special place where we do all this. So you take a pin and you make a small hole. Okay. You make a small hole, just like that. You see that hole? Then you pick your seed. Seeds are very tiny. They're small, microscopic. You just pick them. It's a process, so you have to sit there all day. The seeds are this size, very small. So you pick a seed and you drop into that hole. Okay. Just drop into that hole. Of course, the rock wool is wet, so it's moist enough. You have to provide all the necessary conditions for germination. Of course. We know it's warmth and moisture, and of course oxygen. That is plenty. So you just need to provide the moisture and warmth. Yeah. Without those one, there will be no germination. Yeah. You don't need light. You don't need anything else for germination. Yeah. You just need warmth and moisture. Yeah. Whether in darkness or they will germinate. Growing is the problem, but germination will take place. So we make small holes, drop in our seed, then
put it now on water.
Yeah. Okay. Not on water.
You just leave it.
We just this is moist enough. You can see they are moist.
Yes.
It's moist. So this moisture is just enough for germination. Okay. Yeah. So we just put them in a warm place. So we don't use this shade net because here temperatures are lower. Germination for lettuce seed it requires up to 30 degrees. Wow. You cannot get 30 degrees here. The highest temperature here is 22 degrees. Yeah. When out there is like 26, 27. Yeah. So you cannot get 30 degrees here. Yes. So I do it in a greenhouse. That's where now our nursery is. Yes. It's in the greenhouse. I'll show you. Okay. So in the greenhouse, temperature rise goes even beyond 30 degrees. It's okay for germination. Yeah. With moisture, it's all right. It's fine. So I take it there and you just put on benches. We have benches where you just put, not in water, but you make sure this place is moist.
Moist. And then now you wait for germination.
Yeah, germination takes after 3 days. You'll see them germinating. Okay. Germination 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. When the roots, the leaves start forming, now you can take it to a cooler place.
Now this is where you take it
to a cooler place. Yeah. To a cooler place first to allow for formation of at least 3 leaves. That will take like 1.5 to 2 weeks. Okay. 2 weeks. Then after that, now assuming now we are done with the nursery, now we are transplanting. Yes. Transplanting is easy. Let's assume this we don't have any crop here. So this empty, we already harvested. The water we have tested is fine. Now it's ready for planting, right? Let's assume that. So planting, this is our seedling now. The seedling ready for planting. Yes, we 2-3 leaves now. Yes. You come with your net cap. We use net cap for support, all right? Yeah, because they are too small. There will have been no other way of planting. Of course, these are just holes. They will drop in and this thing like a foot or 2 deep. Yes. So you just press down here and your seedling will come out. Yes. Just comes out and you pick it, all right? And you drop it in your cup. Okay. Just put it in your cup and you place inside. Okay. The tip of this cup will just touch the water. It just has to touch the water. You don't have to immerse it deep inside. You just have to touch. Once it touches, this rock wool has a very high capillarity. Yeah, it has the highest capillarity. That's one advantage I had forgotten to tell you. Why I'm using rock wool is because of capillarity. It has a very high capillarity. So as soon as the net cap just touches the the water, the top of the water will come up by capillarity. So just put it there with seedling.
So capillarity, for the sake of the viewer, is the ability to absorb.
Yeah, capillarity, it's the process by which water will rise, rise in any media from bottom upwards. That's capillarity. Okay, when it's going down, when you pour water and it's going down, sinking, that is drainage.
That's drainage,
yes. So capillarity is the opposite, coming up. The finer the material, the higher the capillarity. Sand has the poorest capillarity. Then clay, it has the highest capillarity. You see this rock wool is fine. So it's a kind of, what do I say, a simulation of clay. Okay. Yeah, so it has a high capillarity.
So then now you drop it in there.
Yes.
And let the crop.
Yeah, and you just leave it there.
Okay.
Nothing more, nothing else. You just, yeah.
All right. Now, let's talk about now the market for your produce. The crop has grown. We need to make money out of it.
Yes.
Let's talk about the market.
6 weeks later, there is a lot of market.
Yes.
For salad, we have no problem with market because people all over the world, day by day, they are being conscious. Their consciousness is growing about healthy living, healthy diet, all those, and healthy food. Mostly, we all agreeably is organic products like what we are doing here. Yeah, we don't trust what the conventional agricultural systems are doing because people are just into business making money. Yes. That's not what we're doing here. Our aim is to make sure that we have a healthy society. Yeah. People around us have to be healthy. It will be so bad for us to produce something that will go and kill the population. So if you kill our clients,
so who's
then
going to buy next?
That's the end of business.
Yeah.
So we want to give our clients the best products to ensure longevity so that they continue buying. Good health. If you're in good health, of course, we have clients. Okay. All right. So our clients, those one who are conscious about health living and health products, there are so many all over the world. Yeah. We get requests. People want to buy from all over the world. We get them on our mails. Yeah, clients are all over the world. In Kenya alone, we cannot even satisfy the market. Yes. Yeah, there's a big market for our products because they're healthy. Yes. No chemicals, no cancer tests. You can see there's a lot of cancer issues. True, coming from food. Basically, it's just food and a few other things. But the highest percentage of the cancer cases is food. The things we're eating. People are in business. We don't have farmers anymore. We have business people, not agriculturists. People who want to do business. You know very little about agriculture, so you just want to produce something and sell. And you don't care how. Yes. Possible, yeah, that's why people are injecting their animals with the hormones. You eat fish that is 2 weeks old, and you think you're eating fish. Yeah. Chicken, you're eating chicken that is 1 month old. No. Yeah. That's not chicken. Yes. You are eating chemicals. Yeah. Then of course they'll act on your system also, because it's a foreign material into your system, and that's how now you get foreign things and cancerous growth.
And so who are your market? Who buys your produce?
Yeah, we have retail. We have retail. Our biggest markets. We have retail shops and wholesales. Yeah, those are the people those are our biggest markets. Of course, we cannot have individuals coming here to buy 2 or 3 liters. Yes. With that traffic, it's not very healthy for our production system. Yeah, because they can come with several other things that can be introduced in the farm. Maybe you never know the soil they've worked on. We don't want that. Yeah. So regulating all that flow, we have retail and wholesale market. Yes. Yes, and we can't satisfy it. It's too big.
It's too big.
Yes.
So if I came in and started such a nini, I would be helping you to serve that.
Please, market. Yeah, come, join. We'll give you ideas.
All right.
We are very much willing to give you even our support, ideas and support to make sure that it will be our pride to have a healthy society. To have a healthy society where people are living. We don't like it when people die because of poor diet and. Bad food in the market. Yeah. So if we are having a healthy society, it's our pride. Right. And we would love to share the information to anyone who is willing.
Let's talk about the farmers who do the production of healthy foods. How do they become part of this market?
So the market is open to any healthy food producer. That's how we call them. And in that I mean like organic farmers and people in healthy value addition. So the foundation of the market is strictly on farmers. We concentrate a lot on farmers because that's where the need is, right from production. And we want farmers that can produce food the right way. The right way, ideally, I mean producing food without the use of toxic pesticides or pesticides that have a toxic ingredient. So we want farmers that can do it from the heart.
All right, so now you've told us about your focus, but then how, I'm a farmer, I'm producing healthy food, how do I become part of the market?
Okay. So like I said, the market is open to everybody, provided they are in line with what we are looking for. So when I say in line with what we are looking for, I mean standards are not very clear, especially in this part of the world. So somebody could say, I produce organic, I've got a certificate, but that's not the case. The real deal is in the farm. So we moved past the paperwork. The paperwork is great, but we look in terms of the integrity issues, you know, trust, you know, honesty. So what we do, we devised our own way. So you can't come to us and say, I'm an organic farmer, can I sell? What we do is we've got a lot of checks. So what usually happens is a farmer would call us or write an email or come and meet us one-on-one. The immediate question is, where is your farm? Instead of where's your paperwork, where is your farm? So once we can figure out where your farm is, we do that just to connect and understand, are they doing right or wrong? And our work is not to police. Our work is to see, is the farmer doing the right thing or not the right thing? And if they're doing a right, good stuff, and they've got issues where some things are not okay, it's our responsibility to give them recommendations on what needs to be changed or how can they improve. So it's a process. Nobody wakes up one day and they're organic. It's a complete process, keeping in mind the way production has been happening. I would say from the 70s, 80s, you know, things have been changing. We've seen an increase in agrochemical companies and products in the market.
Yeah.
So our soils are really damaged. So there's that rehabilitation and changing that. So if a farmer was conventional, we don't stop them. We actually accept them. You know, it's like a drug addict. They stop using the drugs over time, they'll get better if they're disciplined and they're true to it. So that's what we do. So conventional farmers are also welcome, provided they're ready to change. And we have standards. So we'll put them under what we call a transition phase. And a transition phase is determined with our certified organic agronomist, who would say, this farm is in this position, and after this duration of time, we expect them to be organic. It could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, it could be 4 years. Worst case, I've had 5 years. And we don't shut doors for these people. So it's like they were producing 100% bad, and over time it's 1%, you know, good, 99 bad, 98% good. Yeah, something like that. So, and then we also have another group of people that truly do a good job. So these ones, we take them right away, but we still have to keep checking. So once we've taken you, that's not the final. Every 2 months, we visit every farm randomly without prior appointments, just to make sure that they are true to it and they're not driven just by the money aspect of it. So you can imagine, if you are a carrot farmer, customers love you for your carrots, there's no way throughout the year you could have carrots unless you've got a bigger piece of land and you're planning in the farm is well coordinated.
Yeah.
So once that step is done, the next step is, and which is where actually our selection starts. So if we ask a farmer, where's your farm? We would love to visit. Statistics show us around 96% will never call us.
Wow.
So,
wow.
So the ones that call us and they're open to it, then we go. And then once we've seen what's going on, then only at that point is when we bring in our organic agronomist, who will go there and do two things. What is the farm doing right? What is the farm doing wrong? That report is presented to the farmer, and then they've got to change more of the bad stuff into the good stuff, and then over time they keep getting better. And then from there is where now the certification comes in.
Let's talk about the opportunity now here for the farmers. Yeah. How is the market been over the years that you've been with it? The highs, the lows. Can you break that down to us? Yes.
So the market is, how do I put it? It's is running because of a particular vision I had, and I've stayed true to that vision. This was not a money-making activity, and at no point did I ever thought that we need to make money out of this. This was driven because of a personal need, the need to find good food. I had developed an autoimmune disease, and I was struggling to find good food. And in the process, I started producing my own food, and my health started changing. And the fact that my health changed, and would open up my place for people to come during weekends to buy the food that I was producing, then some were like, why don't we start a market? Or why don't you start a market, you know? And that's, you know, it picked from there. And people didn't understand what we were doing in 2010, you know. This was totally, completely, most of the shoppers knew everything that is grown in Kenya is organic. There was that belief. And making matters worse, anything that came or is grown in a rural setup is even more organic, where actually it's worse, you know, because they thought farmers don't have money to buy these chemicals. But then the agrochemical companies have always been smart, you know. They've done it like the Kadogo economy, you know. You could be a poor farmer, you could sell one egg and get a scoop of a toxic chemical, come mix and spray. So over the years, you know, it was a very slow process in terms of getting customers on board. In terms of farmers, quote unquote, not so many were willing to take that direction because they were looking for high yield. And organic does not guarantee you high yield. High yield comes from the agrochemical side. So they were like, I want high yield. Organic does not guarantee you high yield. So that was one challenging thing. The second difficult thing is believability. Customers also not being able to believe the process and the concept. This is Kenya, you know, people believe nothing can be done clean, you know. You've got to bribe, you've got to, I don't know, do what, cut corners. But I can say, you know, there are people that are genuine. So that has always been another issue. But over time, you know, we've seen families, you know, wanting good food, not just sick people. And our intention is not to produce food for sick people. That is not our goal. Our goal is to produce food for everybody. Everybody deserves to eat good food. But of course, there are sick people that come here. We've got people that are just normal, healthy, and they want to stay healthy. There are people that have children, they want their children to eat good food. You know, people have their parents, they want their aging parents to eat good food. So for us, it's just a holistic place where it's for everybody. And at no point are we ever thinking of that we want to produce food for sick people. We want to produce food for everybody across.
All right. And you spoke about yields. You see, one of the arguments that you find farmers have is what you just mentioned, where we see that me going organic means that my yields will not be guaranteed. But if I do the conventional, I'll get almost a guaranteed yield per acreage. So how do you counterbalance that as a farmer?
So there are two things here. There's human health and there's environment. Those are the two motivating factors in my life. So, and what we do here is as a result of love for human health and love for the environment.
Coming towards the end, the market here. If I'm a producer, bringing my produce here, would I sell? Is it something that I also need to begin marketing? What are the dynamics?
So right production is one story, market is a different story. Most farmers are not marketers, which is okay. But if a farmer needs to figure out their farming activity is not a hobby, it's a business. They're doing this so that they can sell it to someone. You know, it's a product in the end. And when you go to the market, the dynamics are different. Like here, the obvious thing is, are you good to your customers? Are you building the relations? Are they understanding your production methods? However much we're here, the successful farmers are also farmers that interact well with the shoppers. And that's why specific farmers are known for specific things in the market. So it's a guarantee, but it's not a guarantee. You've got to do serious work. You've got to build your own following. You've got to get your own customers. And over time, you have to keep doing that. Whether you want to do, you can use the market to do home deliveries, you know. You can use the market to market your farm so that people can come. So these farmers must change and also become business people, but business people that are doing the right thing. Coming here is one step. This is a platform. Customers come, vendors come. But in the end, it's a game. It's a game now where you've got to make your money through the good products that you're making. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Any concluding remarks?
Any concluding remarks? Of course, there's usually the question of organic is expensive. You know, I'm a big advocate of not cheap. Yeah, with reasons. The more it's becoming cheaper, the more toxic stuff you guys are eating. When a farmer in Kinangop his cabbage is bought at 3 shillings or 5 bob, they get demoralized. Next time, do you think he will employ people to weed? He would actually buy chemicals and spray.
Yes.
And spray. So whatever these farmers have to sell is a product. The same way you would sell your service, or you'd sell, I don't know, whatever. They've got a price that they're asking. Pay that price. When you want a good t-shirt or a good pair of shoes, you pay, whether a premium or whatever for it. This is basically in that food space. You've got to pay a premium. But in the long run, the better they become in this, they will figure out cheaper, friendlier ways of producing the same food. Yeah, and in the long run, the prices can come down.
Right, cool. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot.
Great.
And our listeners have actually learned a lot.
Sawa.
Yeah, sawa.
Asante sana.
Shukran.
Very good.
Okay.
Entrepreneurs Lounge is a show that highlights success stories of young entrepreneurs under the age of 40. Entrepreneurs Lounge with me, Ingrid Nantege, Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Businessmen are doers. Businessmen, they're also thinkers. Businessmen are innovators. How did you come up with this idea? How did you decide to give back to it? And where is the need? Where's the gap?
It was a natural gravitation.
So the doers, the thinkers, and the innovators all catch up on the Entrepreneurs Lounge with me, Ingrid Nantege, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. only on Metropole TV. Thursdays are for Metropole Debrief, and this Thursday we discuss the interest rate cap repeal. On the 5th of November 2019, Parliament upheld the President's Memorandum on the Finance Bill 2019 that was proposing a repeal of Section 33B of the Banking Act to do away with interest rate cap. That marked the end of a 3-year tenure starting 2016 that saw banks charge within 4% higher or lower than the central bank rate that was 10%. A very good evening to you and welcome to Metropole Debrief. On the 5th of November 2019, Parliament upheld presidential memorandum that was proposing a repeal of interest rate caps. The interest rate caps had been introduced in the year 2016 as Kenyans were paying interest rates of up to 30% for bank loans they had acquired. As such, Kiambu Constituency Member of Parliament Honorable Jude Njomo sponsored a bill to introduce interest rate caps to protect borrowers from expensive interest rates.
Having persuaded Parliament to pass the bill, the President assented it into law, and in came interest rates that saw Kenyans get charged interest rates of 14% maximum.
The banks have withheld credit from Wananchi in an effort to appease the government to put pressure on Parliament to remove the caps. And that is exactly what is happening right now.
However, banks were not reading from the same script as legislators. Kenya Bankers Association CEO Habil Olaka stated clearly that interest rate cap would disrupt the banking sector in a negative way.
Some of these indicators are beginning to show. Like, for example, we talked about credit rationing, where given that the law obligates banks not to lend above a given rate, it means that if you assess a specific borrower and the borrower's risk profile is such that the commensurate rate of return is above what has been capped within the law, the bank will not go there.
The rollout of the interest rate cap saw banks withhold credit from Kenyans and SMEs, terming them high risk, instead lending to the government. As such, in 2017, the Central Bank of Kenya Governor Dr. Patrick Njoroge said it was time to revisit the interest rate cap debate and possibly repeal the rates.
It is in our interest as a central bank to work to reverse these measures and let ourselves go back to a regime with freely determined interest rates, but in a disciplined environment.
Fast forward to 2019, the President refused to assent to the Finance Bill 2019, proposing that Parliament repeals the interest rate cap bill to allow SMEs access credit. Parliament, having failed to raise quorum to overturn the presidential memorandum, out went the interest rate caps, and in came voluntary interest rates charged by banks at their pleasure.
It's unfortunate that we could not raise the quorum to shoot down the bill, but I'm very sure that the senators, the Senate will deal with it. I'm sure they raise the numbers, but the whole House was united against that presidential reference. So for us, we stand with the people because the banks are actually fleecing Kenyans.
Today, the President signed the Finance Bill into law, translating to banks having the pleasure of deciding the interest rates to charge on loans that Kenyans will borrow moving forward. Very interesting history right there of where it all began, how it has unfolded, and we are where we are today. Now, since the introduction of the interest rate caps, banks, as usual, have complained that businesses have not been doing very well, business has not been very good, they're not making profits as they used to before. As is the case, Debrief, we're in the business of numbers. So let's go through some of the numbers and see if they reflect what banks are saying about not making profit or not being able to operate in good business environment since the introduction of the interest rate caps. Now, in terms of loans and advances in the year 2016, here you have the numbers. The numbers are in terms of millions. So in 2016, 2,157,952. But if it's in millions, then it means banks made 2,157,952,000,000 in terms of loans and advances that were given out. In 2017, we stand at 2,238,564,000,000 Kenya shillings. Now, in 2018, we stand at 2,295,984,000,000. Now look at this. In 2016, the interest rate cap is introduced, but it is introduced in around September. So the market is kind of not doing very bad. However, in 2017, even after the introduction of the interest rate cap, it goes higher to 2 trillion rather, and 2 billion. In 2018, we are at 2 trillion, and it's an improvement, 295 billion, up from 238 billion. So there is an increase. If you look at this curve, loans and advances have been going up, yet banks are saying that people are not borrowing, they're bad debt, and they were just complaining about the business environment. This is in terms of loans and advances. Let's take a look at another category where banks were complaining that they weren't making any money. We move on now to provision for bad debt in the country. Now, there was a downward trend in terms of debt since 2016. Now, these are people who borrow money, they don't pay back their money on time or don't pay back altogether. In 2016, it stood in billions at 17.59. In 2018, 16.06, and in 2018, 12 billion. Now look at this. There's also a downward trend, which is good for banks, because this means if there's bad debt and it's going down, then it means banks are making money. People are paying back their debt, or rather, people are not paying. People are not taking debt altogether. Now this could be argued in two ways, and when our experts comes in, they will help us break this down. But if you look at this, then it means that banks were assessing who to give their money very carefully, and this means that they're putting the money where the mouth is, and it means that people who are borrowing were paying back their money. And maybe this is where the SMEs come in, because they're high risk, then they were not getting credit, but banks were ensuring that they were safe throughout this whole period. Now, moving on from this, we've already explained how this could have been working. Banks were holding back from lending to risky clients, hence decline of bad debt. In the presidential memo, the president noted that lending to SMEs, because of the interest rates, had gone down by about 10%. Okay, so SMEs that were going to borrow from the banks could not borrow because banks were assessing the client. When you go, they want collateral, they want to be sure that you'll be able to pay them back their money, because the interest rates are really low, so they're not making a lot of money in terms of profit from lending you their money. And we saw a shift. So the banks were no longer lending to the private sector. Instead, they were lending to the government. And we saw a rise in domestic borrowing, because now the government and the National Treasury could borrow very cheaply from the domestic market at very good rates. So you also saw banks invest in the real estate sector. They were buying T-bills, which are treasury bonds, instead of putting this money out there for people to be able to borrow this money. And this is because banks were holding on to their money because they weren't comfortable with the interest rate cap. This is just among the reasons that the president saw it fit to ask Parliament to repeal the interest rate cap so that credit can go back to flowing to the SME sector. But that is a wait and see. Will it work? Is it a magic bullet? Where do we go from here? Do we really need interest rate caps? Do we need to repeal them? How do we bring interest rates down to single digit? How do we reduce our fiscal deficit? How do we reduce our debt burden so that interest rates can go down? This and much more on the second part of the show, where I'll be joined with our experts to have the conversation. Stay with Metropole TV. A very good evening to you, and thank you very much for staying with Metropole TV. This is Metropole Debrief, and I am your host, Ondiro Ganga. We've already gone through the first bit of the show. We've put in numbers into context, and we've seen that in 2016, when the interest rate caps were introduced, there wasn't much effect on the market. Then in 2017, a year later, there was a little bit of a shock as the market was trying to readjust to the new environment that it was being subjected to, which was the interest rate capping. And then in 2018, we are seeing an improvement, something more like the market was trying to correct itself. However, we have an expert in studio with us to put some of these things into context. Where do we go from here now that the interest rate cap has been repealed and banks can voluntarily charge you whatever interest rates they want? Are we going back to the expensive regime of 2015-2016, where banks are charging up to 30%? Or are we going to see a reasonable interest rate being charged on Kenyans? Isaac Njuguna, CEO of Zimele Asset Management, thank you very much for making time.
Thank you.
On Tuesday, a very interesting day. In the morning, we had a debate with members of parliament debating about the interest rate cap. They were very hopeful that they will raise numbers and overturn the presidential memorandum. Fast forward a couple of hours later in the afternoon, they go to parliament. They're unable to raise quorum to overturn the presidential memorandum and hence a repeal of the interest rate cap. From your understanding, was it time to repeal the caps?
Perhaps it depends on which side you're seated. I guess if you're in the government shoes, if you're in the bank shoes, they probably felt that that was the right time because there was a feeling that it was starving credit to areas where it was supposed to go, like SMEs and individuals. But of course, if you're the borrower, if you're the SMEs, if you're the micro level businesses, then of course it's not probably a good thing because we've been here before. Banks will say they'll maintain lending rates at a certain level. But of course, things always seem to go the other way. So I guess it depends with where you are. But by and large, there's the expectation that we are going back to where we were before the rate cap era. Yes.
And the rate cap, let's just discuss it a little bit briefly. Yes. Has it served its purpose? Did it serve its purpose? Because on one hand, we were saying it's not a good thing because it's choking SMEs of the credit that it direly needs. But on the other hand, we are saying at least banks are not charging exorbitant rates because even Habil Olaka himself has come up publicly and admitted that Kenyan banks are one of the most profitable institutions in the whole world. Yes. Is it that we rushed the interest rate cap, we didn't give it enough time, or it just wasn't going to work?
I'll probably break it down in a very, very simple way. In the standard reasoning or the standard position, any controls in any market are supposed to bring in shortages. That's one. And there, of course, we had a situation where the feeling was that banks were not giving out as much credit to where it was intended. But two, as an outcome of that shortage, you also end up having businesses not performing well in terms of profitability being affected. Now, banking is a very, very sensitive industry. And if the rate cap development was playing out according to what had been feared earlier, one would have actually seen banks, majority of them, go into loss-making territory. That did not happen. Two, would have actually experienced a period of financial instability. Because of that, and of course the resultant loss of confidence in the public, that did not happen. So I guess on that basis alone, did rate caps affect the profitability of banks? No. Because if you look at it right now, the same big banks that are making double-digit return on investment ratios are still continue to make the same returns. Even for the smaller banks, their profitability, well, remained relatively unchanged. There are other factors, I guess, that were, to blame for the outcome that we saw, but not necessarily that it was because of the rate cap on its own. Yes.
And now that there's a repeal, are we going to see credit being unlocked to people that need it, MSMEs, SMEs, and even ordinary Kenyans? Because the president in his memorandum, he says the interest rate cap has stifled credit flow. The banks are not lending to the private sector. Instead, they're lending to the government.
That remains to be seen, but of course there are other factors that will have to be sorted out before credit can continue flowing. One of those factors, I guess, is the business environment. Now, from a businessman's point of view, if the business environment is not very, very conducive, even if you dropped the rate to a very, very low single-digit rate, I don't think they would probably rush to take on loans, because what are you expanding your business for if demand out there is very, very weak?
And we've seen the environment in the country right now is not very good. Businesses are shutting down.
Companies are laying off. So it tells you the economy is weak. Now, when demand is weak, then you're less likely to have credit on its own acting as a stimulus. Now, perhaps two things would have to be sorted out. One is the pending bills. The amounts of money is owed to these same businesses that have been struggling to borrow more. And of course, by the national government and the county governments. And I think the last count was, the figure was about in the range of 300 billion shillings. Now, that's about 3% of GDP, total output in the economy. That's a substantial amount of money. If this money were to be paid back to these businesses, it would definitely go back to them, enable these businesses to repay the loans that they had, enable them now to be able to borrow even more, but more importantly, get things going again. Second thing that would have to be sorted out is the government's borrowing appetite. Now, all of us basically queue on the same trough, more or less, with the government. So same micro businesses, the same medium-sized businesses, the same large businesses are all competing for credit with the government.
Okay.
Now, given that scenario, banks are less likely to lend to the micro businessman than they would to the government because of risk perception. Now, if the government reduces its borrowing requirements in the market or its borrowing needs, then that will mean there'll be more money freed up for lending to the private sector, which is what would actually be required now to kickstart the economy and get things moving again. So in my view, if we don't sort out pending bills, if we don't reduce government borrowing, we won't see a very big change as is anticipated after the rate cap is removed.
Okay, and I would like to bring the Kenyan into this conversation, because when the bill was introduced in Parliament to introduce interest rate caps, it was argued that we are protecting the local mwananchi who's being charged exorbitantly by banks. And very shortly we shall be crossing over to a bite by Honorable Shekel Sheber. And once there was a quorum on the presidential memorandum, members of parliament were very angry and agitated that they will not be able to protect the ordinary Kenyan from banks who will charge whatever interest rates they please. Let's listen into that bite and then we can come back to it. Shekel Sheber.
Wananchi wanaumia. The wananchi they are being charged very heavily. And once this opens up, the banks are going to go back to 60%, 40% interest rates. And the poor people are going to suffer, the small-time business people.
Are his fears valid that poor people are going to suffer, business people, interest rates of 30 up to 60%?
Well, that is probably given. I mean, it's not likely that after the lifting of the caps that the rate is going to remain where it is at 13%. But by and large, I guess it's we also have to look at the dynamics. When the rate cap was put in place, which is 3 years ago, there's some developments that are not yet taken ground, and that is really mobile lending. Mobile lending had not taken place. Now, previously, the same SMEs we are talking about and micro businesses could not go to a bank and have a face-to-face discussion with a bank manager and get a facility and walk out happy at whatever rate. But now, with the advent of mobile lending, it has actually enabled these businesses to borrow. And borrowing has been taking place in this category, in that market segment. So I guess what we really also need to look at is how do we expand or extend that kind of borrowing, but at more or less realistic rates than what is currently being charged. So I would say, in terms of getting access to SMEs, these mobile lenders have actually had a wider reach than traditional lending to these entities. So rate cap per se, I don't think it might change their fortunes very much, because I don't see Mama Mboga going to see a manager of a large bank and getting audience and walking out with a loan of 5,000 shillings, whereas she can actually borrow the same money from her app and pay it in the evening, and she's all good. So we need to change that, I guess.
So it means that most Kenyans are now geared towards digital lending, and hence banks will have to work extra hard to earn these clients back.
I would say any bank that is targeting individuals that does not have a business model that is geared towards mobile lending will find it very difficult to make loans, even after the lifting of rate caps. So it's not so much that the caps have gone away. It's so much about the standard way of treating or rather approaching lending. The old way of, you have to apply for the loan, give your business plan, how many years have you been operating, how many years have you been profitable in the years that you've been operating. Surely I'm driving a boda. I'm running a kiosk somewhere. I have a couple of M-Pesa shops. How am I even going to do we even have the know-how to put together this information?
Yes.
But with the apps, I don't need to interact with the bank manager or any other bank official. As long as I show ability to pay and I pay my loans on time, I'm good.
So does that mean, because one side says the repeal of the interest rate caps is going to give banks a competitive edge over digital lending apps, because we know also their charges are exorbitant. While banks charge 13.5% a year, they might charge you that percentage a month.
Something that perhaps might be missed in this discussion is that it's not so much the rate, the high rate, that makes these loans appear to be prohibitive. Most of these borrowers, there's very, very small size loans, 1,000 shillings, 2,000, even 4,000, 5,000. They don't mind so much about, you can even charge them 50%, but think about it. He borrows the money or she borrows the money very early in the morning. They go there, buy their wares, they go and buy their wares. By say afternoon, they've already sold whatever they needed to sell, made a profit, and paid back this amount. So the rates we normally charge are normally based on an annual period, annual per annum, as the rate suggests. So 30% per annum. But if I'm able to turn over my inventory within a couple of hours, I actually beat the system. So I'm actually more profitable despite borrowing at 30%.
Okay,
yes.
so it's more of the business model
Correct.
that works for digital lenders. There are several things that we need to do, because before we came on the show, we were talking about countries that have single-digit interest rates, countries that even have negative interest rates. But in Kenya, we are still stuck at double-digit. Even STAWI, that they say is 9%. If you add extra charges, it comes to 4%, it comes to 13%. So we are yet to get there. How would we get there? Let's listen into what Joshua Igara had to say.
Government management of its fiscal side, and we are very happy to see the Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury and Planning managing that strongly. Government borrowing and appetite, correct? Basically removing the private sector from borrowing. As long as those are managed, banks will price credit based on the market conditions.
Right there, talking about how to bring down the rate of interest rates to single digit. Your take?
My take is, I guess, the first thing that would have to do is reduce the government's appetite for borrowing. If we can cut the government's budget, if the government can learn to live within its means, it means that there'll be more money available. The more money available in the system, the less the government will be crowding out, so to speak, to use a technical. Crowding out basically means there's this ugali on the table, yeah, and the government ends up taking all the pieces and leaves you with a smaller piece, the more their appetite continues. So it means if the government removes itself, it's going to leave more pieces on the table for everybody, and the outright effect of that is that the rates will fall. Just to take you back in time, in 2004, interest rates on government paper, that's treasury bills, had fallen to a rate of 0.4% in September. That is unprecedented ever since independence. And as a result of that, and that was because government was borrowing less from the market. As a result of that, interest rates on lending went down to historical lows. And as a result of that, banks did not know what to do with the money they had. And the market we know today as unsecured lending arose. So you see, if the government can remove itself from this equation and leave more money from the private sector to borrow, automatically the rates will come down because there are no takers per se in terms of big size of the government, and banks, or rather even the market itself, will just adjust, and these rates will go down to levels that we've never seen before. But then it remains to be seen whether government can actually cut down its spending. Yes.
And speaking of rates, previously we had the Kenya bankers rate that was used as the benchmark. We've also seen the CBR rate that before the break we were talking about, and we were saying probably the central bank could set a rate, but it's up to banks to comply. Where do we go? Are we likely to see a return of the Kenya bankers rate or CBR rate?
Well, I guess those are very, very technical